just to onboard even the colleagues that did not join us yesterday, that are joining us for the first time, just so at least you gain an understanding of what the deliberations were yesterday. So we opened yesterday and we received a sort of a strategic overview from led by Mr. Matanda from the DRDAR department. Just this laid a really nice context of our deliberations for the day. I think what he really outlined is that the fisheries and the aquaculture for the province are seen as economic activities with main purpose to provide food and food to the community. So that is the impact, and he further outlines that we, within the agriculture, we have the responsibility of rural development, and development and agrarian reform to ensure that all of our efforts develop the rural space and to have to really advance rural economic development. And how do we do this? By ensuring that we contribute to the value chain development and that we improve food security for all. And also we look into issues of sustainable rural livelihoods. Next, we received an overview, sorry, not an overview, but just a highlight of the objectives of the workshop and the map towards the strategy development. So this is the main business of the two-day session. It is the development of the aquaculture and fisheries strategy. So the purpose of that then is to develop an integrated strategy of aquaculture and fisheries of the Eastern Cape, in the main, which will support the growth of a competitive and resilient aquaculture and fisheries sector. The strategy in the main will accelerate development in the province by increasing production through aquaculture and fisheries sector. So that is the purpose of the strategy development, and the methodology outlined was that we've got the plans, we've got the strategy at national, at province, at within the department, that is the DRDAR in this case. And these are it really then forms the base which informs the development of the strategy. So we'll review those existing plans and those existing strategies. We'll hold stakeholder engagement to solicit input. This workshop of the 29th and the 30th is one of those, being one of those identified platforms to engage stakeholders. We've done stakeholder mapping of the key stakeholders or the key categories of stakeholders to engage. And also, it was aligned that we've identified the key thematic areas for consideration towards the strategy development, and these relate to issues of regulation, framework, access to water, access to sites, access to markets and the value chain. Also speaking to issues of research, skills development, capacity building, and coordination, advice, support and monitoring and evaluation. As we go into breakaways, we are more than welcome to maybe propose or suggest more if you feel that there are gaps there or we've left some. Also, Snaba also just outlined the implementation plan going forward. So following this workshop, we'll consolidate the inputs from this workshop and we'll emerge with a draft strategy document. And after which then we will, the draft strategy document, we will review it, and we anticipate doing this by the 24th of July. And if there's further input, we will consolidate further, and the plan is to have the final draft document by the end of July, that is the 31st of July, and that then will be taken through the approval process within the department and hopefully then conclude the process by the 10th of August, and then we shall have then the provincial integrated strategy on aquaculture and fisheries. We then moved on to fisheries. We had focused discussion on fisheries. Firstly, we received a presentation led by Mr. Abongile from the DFFE, the fisheries unit. He outlined at national the state of the fisheries, but also zooming into the Eastern Cape in terms of the priorities and the interventions. So he gave us a snapshot of who the small-scale fisheries are, what are their economic standing, and some priorities identified as interventions in then promoting and advancing the fisheries subsector in the province. Mr. Mwamba, he outlined really extensively the socio-economic profile of the small-scale fisheries in terms of age, in terms of gender, their education, their household income, and also just highlighting that recognizing all of these challenges, the Eastern Cape still has a very compelling value proposition. It has the most potential and opportunity to still awaken that potential and to further develop and advance the small-scale fisheries subsector. And in terms of the priorities and the interventions, I think he outlined that the overall problem analysis really outlines 3 core problems, which suggest that the small-scale fisheries have no skills to run business entities. They do not participate in the value chain, and that there's a limited infrastructure. So in the main, those are the 3 core problems within the fisheries subsector. He also highlighted some goals, primary goals, some ideas of what needs to be done then to counter those issues. And because the primary goal really is to sustain the small-scale fisheries co-ops. The interventions that the department has undertaken, and they continue to undertake, and in some cases even partnering and collaborating with other organizations with key mandates, really that align to the specific interventions. They also touched on some challenges and shortfall within the department, and also just highlighting key priorities going forward. In terms of capacity and support to the small-scale fisheries, improving the coordination, and really just to assist the cooperatives to develop and grow from just being having an activity of just fishing in the ocean, but really be advancing and growing into becoming sustainable businesses. We then the challenges and in fact the presentation, it gave a nice context as we moved into the focus panel discussion on fisheries. We took the first panel discussion to really hear a perspective from the small-scale fisheries that was moderated by Mr. Mfundo Matanda from DRDAR, and the panelists were representatives from the 4 districts, the Alfred Nzo, the OR Tambo, the Amatole, and the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. The discussion really were really centered around the initiatives that are taking place within the districts, what are the challenges there, what are the possible solutions and actions, and also just they were given the opportunity to reflect on the earlier presentations. I think what was emerging from that panel and even the aquaculture panel that we received later was, but specifically for this one, it was really the issue around post-handover support. So the small-scale fisheries, they were handed over fishing rights, but then the post-handover support really is not coordinated. It's not really, having the impact or the desired impact or even the intention that it was meant. It's really not reaching, what it is that's supposed to be happening on the ground. I think in summary, it emerged that, the planned interventions and the identified priorities from the side of the department do seem to speak and in fact align or seem to address the issues on the ground. However, maybe what is really needed is an accelerated effort to really address the issues causing the frustration, on the ground, and ultimately for the co-ops to begin to enjoy the benefits of holding those licenses. We moved further and we received a presentation from the DFFE as well, Aquaculture Unit led by Mr. Keegan, whereby he presented the small-scale aquaculture framework and the implementation plan. Keegan highlighted that as the province is undertaking, to develop the strategy of the two subsectors, it is just important that we really take cognizance of the national frameworks, the plans that are there, because there's a lot that we could then absorb for our process. So Keegan went on to just look into issues of legislation, access to funding, the clustering of the of aquaculture, highlighting that the small-scale aquaculture farmers currently are operating in isolation, and therefore it is important to cluster. I think one of the key points Keegan was also driving is that whilst the sector, the aquaculture sector is costly, there are no tech alternatives for consideration while still farming, high-value species. We then received the panel discussion number 2, moderated by ARCO, and with panelists by representatives then from 3 farmers, the Riverdale Hatchery, the Kingfish Enterprise. Okay, my apologies for that, the Equatorial Aquatics and the Wild Coast Abalone. And also the discussions, they were focusing on the key challenges, the possible solutions and actions. I think later on then we received a presentation, and this was concluding our day. Just as Eastern Cape support from the Worldwide Fund SA just also coming in there to highlight their interventions in the Eastern Cape, unlocking the blue economy and focusing on building climate resilience. And we also then lastly received a presentation from the Walter Sisulu University. They're also doing some work there, especially in the Wild Coast, just really driving sustainable small-scale fisheries livelihoods and interventions. So that was, in summary, the day that we had yesterday. We had very rich input coming in from the discussions yesterday, which really laid a nice ground as we move into Breakaways today. And we really are hoping that we will receive even more of those contributions as we try to, just gather the perspective and the views as we develop the strategy. So in a nutshell, that is it. We had a very successful day, and we hope the same steps.
Thank you very much, Pierre. That's a nice recap. I think my highlight yesterday was that I don't see him today. I think that was my highlight yesterday. It showed that wisdom is not about education. Sometimes we have what we call native wisdom, especially how he highlighted the fact that we should not depend on the government. And sometimes some of these things we say is government fault. It's actually about our responsibility, and that it's about the mindset. That was the main highlight for me. And I wish he can speak to more young people, and tell them about these issues. Because young people tend to think it's all about government must. So yeah, that's my highlight for yesterday. We have the HOD of Dr. DRDAR online, Ms. Dudane. I would like to hand over to you, ma'am, for your input. Thank you very much for honoring this occasion. We received your apology yesterday, but you were ably represented by Mr. Matanda, and your team was here in full force yesterday. We really highly appreciate the support you are providing. You are leading from the front as Dr. Da, and we really feel your impact. So we highly appreciate that you are able to join us, taking advantage, of course, of the virtual platform. So I'm not sure if you can hear me, ma'am. I'll like to hand over to you. Can you test? Can you say something so that we can see if we can hear you?
Yes, I can hear you very much well, Program Director. Thank you very much, and I hope you can hear me well as well.
Yes, but you are not connected to this speaker system. Oh, okay. Okay, yes, you can go ahead, Jody, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, Program Director. Good morning to all of you colleagues, and thank you very much for giving that summary of the proceedings yesterday. Our colleague from ECSECC, I think, if I got it correctly, I would like first to appreciate all of you that have been involved in these discussions. Of course, our partnership and collaboration from ECSECC. My sincere apologies for the noise. There's some construction happening at the background here, but I hope that it's not going to disturb the call. So I would like just to appreciate the colleagues from ECSECC and all the participants and the stakeholders really part of this meeting. SAMSA to note, Saimi, the colleagues from WUSU, colleagues from the various district municipalities, the small-scale representatives from various districts, very key important stakeholder here. Equally, our colleagues and my former colleagues from the DFFE, especially the Fisheries and Aquaculture component, Mr. Ngongwa, Mr. Keegan from the Aquaculture, colleagues from the ECDC, the ECRDA, CETA. I do know that we've got a huge participation from them. Their commitment, in fact, I was speaking to the CEO of AgriCETA yesterday, indicating that Mr. Hermanas is going to be a participant throughout these deliberations, which is something we really appreciate. We've got such a very good relationship with the AgriCETA. Various participants from the civil society organizations, the WWF, Wild Coast Abalone, and Rivendell Hatchery Ornamentals, and colleagues from other departments, probably that I might not have mentioned, and of course, the colleagues from the Department of Rural Development and Agrarian Reform. Chairperson, I have no doubt that the people that are part of these discussions are very, one, knowledgeable people, two, are people that have been involved in the discussions and in the developments that have been happening in the space of fisheries and aquaculture in the country. First at a national level, when the big a push in particular on aquaculture was being driven at a presidential level through the Operation Pakisa throughout the years. And of course, the prominence of the small-scale fisheries that came about as a result of the court judgment of the Equality Court in 2007, wherein we were instructed by the Equality Court to address the inequalities in terms of the participation and access and economic participation by the small-scale communities that reside along the coastline that for many years have been using these resources. Chairperson, am I still audible?
Yes, yes, you are. Yes, you are audible.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we've been moving this discussion from a perspective of both the small scale and the aquaculture for several years. And as I say, the discussion and the prominence of the small scale and addressing the inequality on the access and the livelihood of the people residing in these communities was triggered by that Equality Court ruling of 2007, albeit that the process has been moving slowly. But I am very, very sure that many of you seated in that room do know that at least from the period of 2016, we gained impetus in terms of driving at least the amendment of the Marine Resources Act, which was then signed into law in 2016 in February by Parliament, wherein the bigger component of the people of this country residing in the coastal communities were recognized and became included, and so that they can have a meaningful participation into the ocean space, and in particular in the fisheries space. So the processes were led at the time by the then Department of Agriculture, Forest and Fisheries to the amendment of the policy, and further that it was the identification of the fishers, establishment of the cooperatives, which is the cooperatives that now we have throughout the 4 coastal provinces, the Northern Cape, the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, and the KZN. So basically, Chairperson and colleagues, I'm saying, seated in that room are people who have been driving these developments, are people who've been driving these developments from a small scale perspective, people who've been driving these developments from an aquaculture perspective, and the overarching of that, amending the policy, getting everything ready. So you've got people in that room who've got the knowledge, who've got the history, and of course SAMSA has been on board in assisting with everything that has to do with sea safety, and of course their participation, which was quite very, very, very meaningful and engaging throughout that process. Partnerships with the WWF and various other stakeholders and other civil organizations that have been literally part of this long journey. Now, colleagues, we are coming to say, we've done this journey. It's been a long journey from a small scale perspective, from an aquaculture perspective. Now we are wanting to cement and craft a strategy. That strategy that should have an integrated approach. We are each in our corners contributing something, but I think the biggest challenge we are currently having, sitting with the knowledge that we all have, sitting with the expertise in our various corners that we all have, sitting with our resources in our little corners that we all have. Dr. Da has some resource, ECDC has some resource, Saimi has got some resource, SAMSA has some resource, WWF has some resource, and the various of other probably organizations have some resources here and there. And I think the biggest question we must answer through these discussions and today is to say, how do we then congregate the expertise we all have, the knowledge that we all have, the resources that we all have, so that we come up with a comprehensive strategy that is integrated? Because we don't want to see someone doing their own component somewhere there, the other is doing theirs there, and the other is doing theirs there. Because by so doing, we are not going to realize the full potential of what needs to happen. And at the center of it, and I'm glad the person who was giving the overall summary of yesterday, and I am very sure that Mr. Machanda did talk to that area extensively yesterday. The center of it is that the Eastern Cape in particular is a rural province. And we are operating, all of us, the stakeholders that need to be part of this change, are bringing something that has to address the plight of the people in the rural areas. So this province is 60% rural. So the interventions that we must come up with, the strategy we must think, the integration we must think, should be the integration that is going to talk to the livelihoods of those people that are in that rural space. One, because there's limited activities you find in the rural areas. And that by so it is as it is. It is now critical that the ocean space, or at least the fisheries and aquaculture, come in to address that, and so that we can present this sector as an alternative for stimulating the economic activities and economic growth in the rural areas. Two is the issue of the job creation, because there is death in terms of economic potential and activities in the rural spaces. The fisheries and aquaculture becomes a hope that it can create those jobs in that space. including downstream and upstream activities. Is this possible? Yes, colleagues, this is possible. When I talk about this, I always make an example about everyone else in this continent, just above us in Mozambique. If you go to Mozambique, even the little tiniest village in Mozambique, people eat fish, people have fishing economic activities happening. You go to Tanzania, you go to Kenya, you go to Malawi, a landlocked country that has got just a lake. In Malawi, people talk fish, eat fish just from a lake. You go to Lusaka in Zambia and other parts of Zambia, so landlocked, no river, no major dam, no everything. But tilapia is consumed so much high in Zambia. Of course, they get it from Namibia and probably from the DRC. But the issue that I'm trying to point, colleagues, is that you go to the most rural village anywhere in the continent, and I dare say anywhere in the world. And those of you that have traveled extensively know exactly what I'm talking about. You go anywhere in the world, in the most tiny village that is rural, that is in the outskirts out there, the economic activity of those villages, if there is an ocean, is mainly driven by fishing activities. And of course, various other activities down the line, whether it's net repairing, it's bait preparation, and it's every other activity that is associated with fish, even ecotourism for that matter. So the thing is that we have seen that it does work, but it means that we collectively have to come together and think carefully what each brings on the table. And I'm hopeful that Abongile yesterday did talk at least to the study that was done, the socio-economic study that was done of all of these communities along the coastline of South Africa. It was very clear there in terms of the socio-economic input data that was collected, was their level of education, their other economies, activities, their income. And in fact, that study even compared to look at who were on the social grants, depending on the social grants. And that study that Abongile did at that time was showing that fisheries can actually overtake and become the major economic activity and income generation for people who depend on social grants. It was very clear that over the years, you can literally wean people out of social grants so that that money then goes to other priorities of government. And I dare say, colleagues, when I presented this preliminary report to the MEC of Social Development and to the minister for that matter, they were quite very keen to see this because they've been struggling to come up with alternative livelihoods of people who depend on social grants so that they can have some activities that take them out of social grants, because as we know, the public purse is shrinking and there's competing activities that need to be funded from the public purse. And if we are able to use this sector of fisheries and aquaculture so that it becomes that alternative livelihood for the people and wean them out, it can be done, colleagues. It can be done. I am telling you, it can be done. Of course, there's issues of limited resources and the issues of knowing how much resources are in our ocean and in particular in the Eastern Cape. We've not done research, and I'm hopeful that we can equally focus Mfundo on that issue, and that can be the debate. I'm glad Wusu is here. Hopefully, I don't know, probably NNMU is equally in the meeting. I would be happy if they are in this meeting, because there's a big element of research that needs to happen, especially in the East Coast, because most of the research that we've always done as the department, national department, focuses on the West Coast and a little bit on the South Coast, where your area of squid and everything happens, and a very little bit that gets done because of the sardine run toward the east side of the coast. But besides that, there is no tangible, proper research that is being done. Of course, you've got some researches here and there, pockets of them done by the ORI, a little bit by other organizations and everything. But we have not been able to really have comprehensive data. It sits somewhere. Eastern Cape Parks Board, they've got their information there. ORI has got their information there. Probably WWF has got their information there. But we've not set to see whose data is having what in terms at least of mapping the biomass of the resources. That we are just quick to say, oh, the resources are shrinking. I'm not saying they are not shrinking. I'm a fisheries scientist myself. I do know the pressure that is on the resources in terms of the capture fisheries. But I think if we throw such statements without quantifying those statements, it can become very dangerous, because we may be saying the same, or probably you may find the resources are more depleted in the West Coast than they are in the East Coast, which is my great suspicion, by the way. But there's so much big economic activity happening in the West Coast, and it has not stopped because that the resources have been shrinking. The case of the abalone is a case in example here. Abalone fisheries is still going on in the Western Cape, despite that the biomass is said to be declining and the TAC has been declining over the years. But it is still an economic activity, whether in a black market or done properly. The West Coast rock lobster is another example, albeit that the resources has been plummeting and plunging to very little whatever, but the resource there is still being fished, and the West Coast rock lobster is still a fishery even today. So the issue that I'm trying to bring is that we have a very big element we need to focus on as the Eastern Cape insofar as research is concerned, because again, if we are going to be using assumptions, it's going to be very much problematic. I would love to see a research survey done by the DFFE, a research survey, a troll experiment or whatever, trap nets or everything or anything that can be used depending the fishery. Because by far and large, the research is focused on the West Coast, and it comes to the Eastern Cape just on south of the Algalhas, which is mainly your squid fishery. Besides that, chasing the sardine to Durban and stuff like that, literally your research vessels of the department never do any further research than that. The Africana doesn't come the side of the East Coast to do research. You name them, all of them, the Sardinops and all of the research vessels for that matter, as I say, except for the squid until the South Coast. So there's a big element of research that we need to focus on. And I think, Chairperson, those are the things that I would like to bring. And again, colleagues, I want to appreciate the work done. I appreciate the stakeholders that are involved here. I appreciate these discussions that are happening. We really need to get this one to the line. We've been saying this, we've been talking this. The journey of small scale started 2007. The journey of aquaculture, at least I would say prominence of aquaculture started during the Operation Pakistan. I'm saying prominence, I'm not saying we started aquaculture at that time. Of course, aquaculture has been part of the fishery in South Africa, but its prominence was raised during the time of Operation Pakistan. But if you look at other countries like Egypt, for instance, and Nigeria and other countries, I mean, they've started long way ahead, having proper strategies on how to drive this sector of aquaculture. So we were a little bit behind. We're still a little bit behind, though there's some movement, but I think we really need just to up our game and a little bit increase the scale and the pace of which we do these things. And I think that working together and having a clear plan and a strategy so that everybody that contributes come to contribute on a clear plan so that each one's effort add up to the other. If you go to Google Scholar, you'll see there the logo standing on the shoulders of the giants. We need not reinvent the wheel, colleagues. We need not do our own little things on the corners. We need to stand on the shoulders of the giants. Each and every one of us add to that giant, and we need to add our effort. Add to ECSECC, ECSECC adds to DRDAR, DRDAR adds to WWF, WWF adds to the other, to ECDC, add to SAIMI, add to the other, so that we can literally say we stand on the shoulders of the giant, and that generation that comes after us, that they may take up the work and continue with the work, because we have been able to consolidate and congregate our efforts, including our resources, so that we can push this sector forward. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you very much, HOD, for those reassuring remarks that you have given us today. I think we are highly motivated to know that as the head of the department, you are really fully committed to this initiative we are undertaking today, and that you will lead this initiative from the front. We really highly appreciate it. We look forward to presenting to you the outcome of this workshop, and as well as the draft strategy that ultimately will be adopted by EXCO and to inform resource allocation for this sector. Thank you very much. We highly appreciate the time that you have set aside for us. Okay, colleagues, that's it. I think that's a nice way to start day 2. And with that committee, the high-level commitment from the HOD. Justice was supposed to give to outline a framework for commissions, or are you going to do it?
All right. So there is really one focus for today, and that is to get into breakaway sessions. I think we've engaged extensively. What then we need to do now with breakaway and have really guided and focused discussions as we collect, what is key and that which will fit into the strategy. So we have three breakaways. The one focusing on aquaculture, and we've broken up the fisheries into inland fisheries and marine fisheries. I think the inland one is often forgotten. It has its own dynamics, and therefore I think it's important that we just have just focused discussions on inland fisheries. This is the main. We have 3 venues. This is the main venue. We will be receiving the aquaculture breakaway session at this plenary session. And we've got just outside this venue, we have 2 other venues. Actually, we would have seen the doors. They will take the one on the first one as you're coming through the door. We'll take that one for the inland fisheries, and the next one next door will take the marine fisheries. The aquaculture, which is the one that is taking here, Justice, he has just left the room for now. I would have loved for him to just indicate. He will be facilitating that one and will be describing, as I said, we are having very focused discussions. As presented yesterday, as we were presenting the methodology, I think we outlined about 9 sort of focused and thematic areas. We are more than welcome at breakaway sessions, maybe to propose more if you feel that we've left some. I've also highlighted them. Those are the issues speaking to regulation, the access to sites, the diversification, and as I highlighted earlier on. I think then what we are attempting to answer really, and which is what we think is key for the development of the strategy, is where are we in terms of what is the status currently on the ground, or maybe what are the achievements. But really is just to outline the status quo, and given the status, maybe what are the challenges on the ground, and noting the challenges, what then are the proposed interventions, and the desired outcomes. I think really in the main, those are the 4 broad areas that we are attempting to respond to in terms of the focused areas that we've identified. And that's but that is the brief really in summary when it comes to breakaways. We are going to break away until that is the business, I think, until 12 o'clock method, of which we'll all come back then to plenary, and we just received just short report backs from the facilitators, and then we should mark the end of our day. So we're moving straight into breakaways now. This is the aquaculture. The first room is the inland, and then the second one is the marine fisheries.
Yes, I hope the colleagues on virtual can hear us.
Very well, very well. Can hear you very well.
Thank you so much, HOD and other colleagues. Michael is going to now take over and present about ornamental fishes. Are you ready, Michael?
Yes, I am. So while we're waiting for this to come up, I'll just introduce myself. My name's Michael Salutin, and my background is with ornamental fish, which are aquarium fish. That does not just mean goldfish and koi. Goldfish and koi is about one of 6,000 species in the trade. So I'm working with a business partner to acquire Rivendell hatchery for ornamental fish aquaculture for export. I'd like to introduce the industry just a little bit first, because there's so little familiarity with this industry. So the ornamental fish industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide. And I'm just going to go over some of the basics here so that there's a little bit better understanding, as it's not that well known in South Africa. Okay, so what are ornamental fish? These are fish for aquariums and ponds. Okay, and they're divided into freshwater, marine, further divided into tropical and cold water. Koi are one species of cold water for ponds only, a very, very small fraction of the industry. From what I know, they're not that easy to breed and maintain. I have personally know someone who has, a scientist who has written 3 entire volumes on the subject in a series in German. So that's a precise science. We are focused on tropical freshwater here, which contains thousands of species. It's immensely popular worldwide, and there are clubs, shows, competitions for breeds and aquaria, and there are thousands of species. So there are many aquarium types. You've got marine, community, the monster fish tanks for huge fish, which can be tens of thousands of liters. Planted, and some of these are for the luxury market. This is one from Japan, from a gallery. Japan is one of our export markets that we're very interested in. They are willing to spend quite a lot of money on their fish. So global trade is worth $7 billion US, and it's projected to reach 12 billion by 2025. That has probably been affected by the pandemic, so it may be a bit lower. The major importers include USA, Germany, the Netherlands, China, Japan, and many other destinations. And there's millions of fish shipped worldwide daily. By shipped, I mean air shipped, by plane. These fish are shipped in sealed bags in styrofoam boxes. That is standard. It's nothing strange in the industry, and they arrive alive because of the techniques used to pack and ship them. And there are a number of trade shows worldwide. In China, there's a trade show for ornamental fish and pet industry, which attracts about 100,000 visitors and has over 2,000 vendors. There are others in Germany. There's Interzoo, Bavarian, and so forth. So there are large international trade shows for this industry around the world. Currently in South Africa, there's a few importers and breeders. There's Nemwe, and in Western Cape, there's CampCon in Pretoria. There's Rivendell, which is for local market, and oh, I've lost it here. Can you still hear me? Okay, I'll just speak loudly. Rivendell supplies Malawi cichlids for the local market. And then there's WC Imports and a couple of others, and a few private breeders that I know here as well, who do okay. Almost none of these export. I know of only one who does import and re-export for some fish from Nigeria. Okay, so these are the African ornamental fish. We are focused on West and Central African fish, not Malawi fish or Tanganyikans. Those fish are too easy to breed, and they've been bred all over the world. So the market opportunity now is for the captive bred West and Central African fish. And the reason being that unlike South American fish and Southeast Asian fish, where the trade is very well developed for consolidation centers and the channels of distribution, there's a high dead on arrival rate for African fish right now. There's poor quality, it's seasonal, there's low volume, it's scattered, and the ID is unreliable. So this means the industry wants these fish, but they can't get them. And we are able to supply them. So these are high value, rare, and desirable fish. And the demand exists for this quality product right now. So these species have high value from 75 to 2,250 or more per fish. They are hardier and healthier, more adaptable if they're captive bred. Available consistently in volume, which the biggest importers want to see higher volumes and they can't get them. And it includes fish from all over Africa, but we're talking about mainly West and Central Africa. The expertise to breed, oh, we lost it again. So the expertise to breed, raise, pack, and market and export these professionally is there. It exists, and we have it. So we should use it. These are some example retail prices from real retail shops. That's a tigerfish right there, 150 pounds in England. Okay, the knife fish, 100. These are retail prices. Obviously, wholesale is going to be a few times lower, but that's per fish. It's per fish. There's a puffer fish that sells for $1,000 US retail. The price fluctuates, and you have to follow with it. But there's another puffer fish at $1,000 retail, so that would be about $100 each wholesale. These are some of the species, very beautiful species, most of which most importers get maybe once a year, once every 2 years, or something like that. Very hard to get, very desirable. They simply can't get them. The regulatory challenges I mentioned before, these are the fact that there are no master import permits now. This is something that would be necessary to fix, actually. Right now, from the Department of Animal Health, there are only individual permits for individual shipments available. That means we will have to be getting dozens of import permits every year. It's mainly just a hassle, but no country that does this type of business doesn't have master permits. So that's a major challenge. And getting the imports from other countries such as DRC, Cameroon, Guinea. I'm talking with suppliers in all of these countries now. I'm talking with fisheries scientists in all of these countries now. Also Sierra Leone, Togo, and others. They have unique fish that could be bred here easily and could be marketed overseas. They do not breed any of these fish in any of the countries of origin. There are no captive bred African ornamental fish besides Malawi and Tanganyika in Africa. So all of these fish would be new to be bred commercially for the first time. And that's where the interest from the importers comes, because it hasn't been available before, ever. So it's essential to establish trade channels with these countries to allow the growth of the industry. And how is this addressed? These are things that I've been discussing with Operation Pakisa, with Kishan and others who are actually bringing this issue up with the Trade Department and also with Animal Health. Biosecurity challenges. How do we mitigate risk from fish disease? So this is an important part. We've developed a disease testing protocol, but the way we're handling this is that for both wild caught and captive bred, it's for export only. So for most of these fish are not for the South African market. South African market is quite limited now. We hope that it will be growing, and it is growing slowly. But they are not mostly for sale in South Africa. So that is a way that we get around that issue. is that they don't leave the facility. The fish have to be quarantined and stabilized before arrival in South Africa, and also again here before they are exported. That's part of the whole package, is that these importers want to see disease-free fish, healthy, arriving alive. That's what they can't get now, and that's what they want, and they're willing to pay for it. I've been told by an importer now that South Africa, even by the shipping routes, can compete with direct shipments from those countries because we can mitigate the number of fish that are dying in that process. Okay, so, and the third is the concept of a dual epizone. So this is a veterinary concept that we can establish a good facility. If a facility in DRC or Cameroon can establish a veterinary oversight, then it's possible to do the same with a facility here with veterinary oversight and do it as a test case. Okay, so I'm going to get to the end here. Yeah. Okay, so the benefits here. It's excellent for aquaculture research and capacity building and developing a system of health standards. We can also act as a catalyst for the ornamental fish aquaculture and export industry in South Africa and for job creation. That means not just jobs at a low technical level, going right up to hatchery manager, mentorship over years to acquire the skills. Increases national revenue for ornamental fish exports exponentially. And job creation also in other African countries as well from the revenue of sustainable harvesting, for example, in Cameroon. Serves as a sustainable, responsible social enterprise, which acts as a model within the ornamental fish industry. And it fulfills some of the UN sustainable goals as well for freshwater biodiversity and job security. So this is the idea, is putting South Africa on the map. There's no reason that we can't participate in this global market. There's strong potential for exporting rare, high-value ornamental fish to the overseas markets in Europe, Asia, and North America. All of them have expressed interest to the tune of, so far, about $100,000 per month of exports. I have letters of interest that show this, and they know exactly which species they are interested in. Okay, so this is not limited to African fish or freshwater. There's potential in marine fish as well. And South Africa could emerge as a major player in the worldwide ornamental fish trade with the right support, basically. So our company here is Equatorial Aquatics. We are trying to spearhead this effort. We are currently in fundraising stages with government agencies, with investors, and accelerator funds, and even groups like World Fish and some NGOs are interested because there's potential here for breeding rare and endangered African fish, possibly for reintroduction. So we're discussing all of those options right now. But absolutely, we need support with this. And we hope that the idea is for job creation in the Eastern Cape. Long-term, decades-long job creation, not exploitation, skill building, capacity building, and passing on of the skills, basically, skills transfer. So that's what I wanted to say, just to introduce this idea that ornamental fish industry is real, it exists, and there's demand. And South Africa, because the infrastructure here is excellent. Infrastructure is excellent. It's possible to do this kind of breeding here. It's possible to do this import, re-export here in a way that's financially valuable and valuable to South African economy and to aquaculture here. Thank you so much. Yes. Is there a question? Or? Oh, okay.
The key issue I just want to then I'll ask the issue in terms of how much in terms of investment infrastructure compared to what I've been in the Agrarian farm and also the one Kingfisher.
Yes.
It's quite a very intensive in terms of compared to those three sort of land, how it is in terms of building such quality. And then
yes.
also for that sort of questions then, and just like go quickly. Yeah, the other one, you said that we are importing like much more. You are just trying to import within the African countries, of which they most of them they don't even have this. Yeah. So in terms, these are much more, I would say, freshwaters.
Yes.
Yeah, not marine species. Yeah, so
That's right.
within that, yeah, in terms of where they are being caught, to select the issue, you know, most of the areas like in Africa, there's quite a lot of degradation in terms of water quality and water, which may have impact. For example, if you, let's say you develop such a market and then there's a problem of the environment becomes so toxic and then they die. So are they within the protected area so that the sustainability of the business can continue way forward? Yeah. And then the other issue that I wanted to maybe the lifespan, how much you select some, how much they live, or else you still try to reproduce them here, or only bring those ones which are already been alive, not starting from spats upwards, and then we'll speak the issue of the permit, which is the blood point, of which you say one of the challenges that we don't issue the permits. How can maybe it's an issue of trying to develop a new legislation, and even within that, I know, for example, within our department, there's an inland policy for the fisheries policy which is trying to be developed. I'm not sure whether to interact with our department. You say, I know Kumo is the director there, like you say, so that those sort of possible challenges in terms of legislation or also policy, they can maybe be tried to be covered here. As I'm not sure whether it is this the competence of the national government or the competence of the provincial government. Yeah. So I'm sorry to ask those, it's just to get a better understanding.
Okay, I'll try to, I may need a little clarification on one or two, but for the first one, this requires acquiring Rivendell and setting up a holding facility, which may end up being at Rivendell or may end up being another location. The stage one is 13 million rand. So that's it right there. So I don't know if that's a lot or not. To me, this is actually a relatively small farm to start. Year by year, the idea is to add more tunnels so that you can have more species. This farm could now support about 100 species in total capacity. In its full capacity, it's 450,000 liters of 4 tunnels, a few hundred tanks, and it can produce 100,000 fish a month. Okay, so to be fully independent, it will need to have double that size and have about 200 species and maybe close to 1 million liters. That means building 4 more tunnels. But the first stage to get everything started and going is 13 million rand, which I don't know, is that a lot or not? I have no idea. Is it relatively big or relatively small? I really don't know. To me, it's a lot, but maybe to someone we've been told by some investor groups, oh, nobody will bother with anything this small. Has to be 100 million, has to be 200. Said it's easy to get 200 million, hard to get 2 million. So, no, so does that address your question first? Yeah. So what's the second one, please?
So just the source after
you have to get wild caught source.
Yeah, and then you breed.
You import them, you quarantine them, you breed them, and then the tunnels are for growing the fry out to 4 centimeter size, which you send out to market. Yes. So that wild caught brood stock is very important because many of these fish are not in breeding anywhere in the world. They're totally new. Now, that doesn't mean that they haven't been bred before or the technique's not there. They are, but no one is breeding them commercially. And there's no reason not to. And what was your third question?
Okay. No, I was worried the issue of water quality, the source.
You mean, what do you mean by water quality? Do you mean diseases and things like this, or do you mean
some of the countries, the issues of sewage and all of that, which may affect the source where you are getting those fish? Yeah.
But in terms of what they might go extinct in the wild because of that. Well, that's part of the reason for the NGO side and the captive breeding of rare and endangered species. We are actually speaking with fishery scientists, for example, in Cameroon, there's 12 critically endangered species in one lake. And that lake is being affected by agricultural runoff and so forth. Having a captive bred, they call insurance population, can prevent the extinction of multiple species. It's not that hard to do, and it doesn't require much funding, to be honest. Yeah.
That's what the permit, the rules, national
For Rivendell, we've been helping them to get all their permits. We have all the permits we need now, even for export. That audit was done with the help of Mandisa and Dr. Razani, and with the help of Mufundo Makanda, who helped arrange the first meetings. Everything is in place for the permitting. It's taken a very long time, but everything is in place. What is missing though is master permit. We will have to do the extra step of getting more and more and more permits for each import that we do. We can do it, but it's expensive. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a hassle. It would make much more sense if there's master permit that goes for longer time. Yeah.
I think that permit comes through.
But there's no such thing as a master permit. So Animal Health has been very clear about that. And the reason another department used to handle master permits, they stopped. No one else ever did a master permit. So
I'm aware. I think we deal with imports of that fish, but I think you are correct. I think you have to import the list of species at the time. It's not over a period of time.
Well, yeah, it's only one shipment,
Yes.
and then you've got to apply for a new permit. Imagine if you're importing every week, that's normal. Import a new shipment every week, one from Cameroon, one from Nigeria, and so forth. It won't be Cameroon, it'll be Zambia or something, but then you're going to be applying for a new permit every week.
Yeah.
Every week of the year, 52 permits a year. It's going to be more. It's going to be 100. It's going to be 150 permits a year. That's a lot. That's a lot of permits. Yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you for giving me time for this. I appreciate it.
On
Yeah.
the exports, you said you could supply, for instance, to Japan. How long does your fish stay alive and ship?
Fish can stay alive for up to 4 days in sealed bags, pure oxygen, sedative, and then they've been purged so they have nothing in their intestines. So, but we don't let them go that long. We get them there within 24 hours. 36 should be the outside, because then you have to factor in if there's a delay or anything, you want a margin for error. And that's the 1 or 2 more days that they are still fine. And that's been done for decades worldwide. It's very effective. We can have virtually 0 mortality if it's done correctly. If it's not, if you don't have correct packing materials, if you don't have correct techniques, so forth, if the fish are not in good condition before you send them, and not skinny and not starved and not diseased, then you can have 80%, 90% mortality. And that does happen with direct shipments sometimes to other countries. That's why they want us to do this, because they don't want to receive 70% mortality. They want to receive fish in good condition. Yeah, that's our market gap. Is we have the capacity here in South Africa to supply those fish in good condition. Yeah. Yes.
I think then you do 80. Fish.
Yeah.
Any problem?
For what?
And now it's too expensive eating.
Oh, the feeding.
Yeah.
The feeding? Okay, so this is not such an issue as it is with tilapia. Tilapia, because it's much lower price per kilogram and so forth, you are on the knife's edge. I think Nick knows this a lot better than I do, but he's explained the economics of it, that the feed versus the production is very, very much on the knife's edge, especially for growing them out, because tilapia are big fish too. These aren't. You sell them when they're 4 or 5 centimeters long. So the feed costs are like a fingerling operation, which is not a problem. Also, the value is 100 times for tilapia. However, we still want to have green water and live food systems, which we can absolutely do. As much natural free food as possible. The fish love it. It's good for breeding them. It's good for conditioning. It's good for feeding the fry. So we absolutely need supplement from that. But the feed cost is not an issue when it comes to ornamentals, because these are not food fish.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Michael. Colleagues, I would ask that we not continue with the questions, but maybe be the last one. Be the last one. Thank you so much, Michael, for such a lovely presentation. I can take you, ma'am. Please go for it. But may you come closer, please, for the sake of people that are attending virtually. Please come closer, ma'am.
My hand is also up, Chairperson. Thank you.
Your hand is up, HOD. Okay, HOD, you want to start? Please come closer, ma'am.
No, I can go after the person that was to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, HOD, for understanding.
Thank you. Can you hear me? No, it's off. Good morning, colleagues.
It's fine, we can hear.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Londu Musompanyana from Saimi. My question is, and I think I don't remember Michael answering Mandisile's concern on the cost of doing business if you were to compare ornamental fisheries as compared to, the normal streamline of aquaculture for feed security, etc. So I have not heard that. And my question is on the biosecurity challenges that you mentioned, and you said sometimes you put fish on quarantine.
Yeah.
I am concerned about the scarcity of veterinarians in the country, and I would want you to speak on that. How then do you intervene or anticipate us and intervening going forward? Thank you so much.
Just very quickly, we've been working with Dr. Gillian Taylor, who's one of the foremost experts. She helps to develop our disease. She's one of the foremost experts. She advises government all the time on import, export, and disease. So she helped us develop our disease testing protocol. But I've gone far beyond that. I'm in meetings with the University of Florida, which has their own ornamental fish aquaculture unit and a series of workshops and so forth. But it's not rocket science. Actually, you have to have a quarantine facility. You have to have certain procedures for disposing of the wastewater from the imported fish, and separate tanks for each species of fish that arrives, so that each is isolated from the others. You have to have disinfection procedures in place, and we have all of those things. Now, we have gone far beyond what is required, but we want to do that. We don't want to introduce any disease to our facility, certainly. And those imported fish that are for breeding, they never go out again. Those fish stop there in the quarantine, and then there are procedures between getting the fry from the adults, and then those don't go into the tunnels. We don't want them in the tunnels, just in case. But there are well-developed methods for disease treatment, isolation, disposal, incineration of diseased fish. If you maintain good conditions, you won't have an outbreak. And this is the point. Rivendell has maintained good conditions for decades now. They've never had a major disease outbreak of any kind. And the idea being, these are not fish going into lakes. They're not going into dams. And if we can help it, they're not even going to really aquariums in South Africa. They are going abroad. They're going abroad. And there is also a number of the procedures are scientific and they're complicated. They involve taking tissue samples and sending them to a lab. And I've worked out those with Dr. Mosisi, who is in charge of imports and also of issuing the export permit, which she issued to us, having found that our disease testing protocols are more than sufficient. So, and she knows Dr. Gillian Taylor as well. Those tissue samples go to the lab, but the idea is to contain those. There's always some kind of diseases and things in wild fish, and you have to contain them. You have to take all the necessary steps, and you don't want to export the diseased fish. You don't want to export diseased fish. On the comparison to subsistence, to the one you said, I have to look at the economics of that. I don't know it, but what I feel like is the job creation and the skill building can be applied to other things, can grow the industry and create long-term employment. And to me, I hope, I don't know, but I hope employment with a steady income can help food security indirectly in being able to buy food, in being able to afford medicine and so on. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. HOD, please, can you come in?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I was covered really by a number of people that asked the questions. And in fact, Ms. Mfenyana just went exactly to what I wanted to bring, because I had not had the response very crisp, yes, in terms of the question that was asked in terms of the cost benefit analysis. And of course, I now hear Mike talks of the food security issue and talking to it, say, indirectly. And I think the mine now is just to make an emphasis. While this is quite a very, very excellent opportunity in terms of the creation of the jobs, potential of skills transfer, given the market demand of this, I think just to Mike will be the continuous need to kind of package this carefully. And of course, not that he needs to convince me on this. I'm a converted already in terms of this. But remember, you're bringing and selling this in a country that is stricken with poverty, stricken with high unemployment, etc. The list goes on. And there is a perception, and I'm saying it deliberately, a perception that ornamental is, it's a nice to do kind of a thing. And at times people get blocked at that first point of it, seen as a nice to do thing that is not that important for a country such as ours on issues of food security, job creation and everything. It, as I say, I need not to be convinced. It is there, but I just say it's going to be important as going forward to continuously package this message in a manner that you're going to clearly show that. And Mandisile's question is really going to remain at the center of that, because again, it's going to be the question of the cost of doing it versus a dinghy that can just get into the ocean, pick up some lobster, sell it as it is and everything. So that is going to continuously going to be there. And I think, well, he has answered to the issue that there's not been a quantification as yet into that. I think that is going to be very critical. It may not be the exact, it may just be the estimates, but I think it's going to be important in packaging and re-messaging this. But it's a very good sector, a good potential, and of course, it being not that known in the country, I do think that it is something that it presents quite a very great opportunity. But again, as I say, messaging, packaging it is going to be quite very critical going forward. But thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just want to thank you so much for that. And I agree with you completely. And I really thank you for that feedback and advice. This is not meant to replace anything else. It is in addition. It is an opportunity to grow something new. It is in addition, and it is not meant to take away or replace anything else for food security, for rock lobster and abalone and all of the other opportunities. It is only an additional opportunity, and I think one that requires maybe not too much initial funding. So it has to grow on its own organically to show and prove itself, basically. That's what it should do from the beginning.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much, HOD. I hope the team that is attending virtually are able to see the screen. That is reflecting the breakaway, this particular breakaway. Colleagues, what has been clear in the past 2 days, reflecting on aquaculture, in particular, as this session has to do with aquaculture, is that there are some efforts but there's a lot of fragmentation, maybe also unrealistic expectations. That has been coming through and through, that maybe in terms of the planning, there's a lot that has been done. But in terms of translating that into something that will work, something that is practical, maybe something that is some simpler technologies, maybe for a particular sector, particularly targeting food security, that maybe is not coming through in maybe our planning or discussion. The issue of also coordination has been raised sharply, that there is sort of fragmentation. However, there's a common consensus that there's a need to work together and put together resources. There is a template that's before us, colleagues. Let me just quickly run through the template. The template focuses on 9 areas: regulatory framework, access to sites and water, diversification of research and development. The HOD touched to a great extent on the importance of research, the sustainable development of aquaculture and fisheries, but we know that for this particular one, we will focus mainly on aquaculture. Then the market access, a lot has been touched even by the stakeholders, Richard being one of them, strongly the issue of market and what needs to happen for the market to be unlocked. Development finance, skills development and capacity building has been touched greatly. Coordination on technical support and advice, I've touched on that a bit. Then the M&E. And then I'm going up now. On each of these learning areas, we're interested on what needs to change, what things to keep, what are proposed interventions, and what are the desired impacts or outcomes. I hope my scriber is ready. Hey. We shouldn't find ourselves stuck. So colleagues, how obviously we'll go one at a time. In terms of the regulatory framework, what is it that we think needs to change? Is the regulation enabling us? Or if I put it differently, because regulation is part of what we use as government to create an enabling environment. Is that working? Maybe let me give you event to hands up. Again, Ali from DRDAR National.
Okay, so a lot of work has been done on the regulatory framework and trying to kind of like synergize everything with regards to the permits that are accessible, specifically around the marine side of things. You know, we are pushing the agriculture development bill to basically have a more structured approach to the the permitting aspect. But I think where you need to focus here is maybe start off with, we have the national side of things that deal with the marine aquaculture permitting aspect, where David, Richard and Arnold and all forth fit in to that kind of area. But then from your own perspective regarding the freshwater aspect, what is the situation there on the ground now? How is the ease of obtaining these permits for freshwater? Because ideally, if it's going to be industries such as Michael's industry that deals with a lot of freshwater aquaculture and could be a possible area of development within the province, how are you going to be supporting them from a permitting aspect? So I think we are narrowing it down to also Eastern Cape permitting of freshwater would also be really to look at it.
Thank you, Richard Clark from Wild Coast Agriculture. Yes, I mean, I think whoever will talk, just introduce yourself because of the panel, because of the people that are attending the show. Thank you.
Justice, thank you. You've done my job for me. Okay, so my feeling is that, I mean, regulations and permits are necessary. Unfortunately, that's just what life is. The point about it is that we need to probably educate people that come into the sector more about the sort of the pathways to having these permits completed and done and sorted out. Like Michael said, it's everything's possible. Get a permit is not impossible. Everything's possible. It's just a pain. So streamlining the system, making it less of a pain, and then helping people to fill in the forms, to get it all in, get it through. I think that is the area where government can improve on, in terms of just being able to assist people to have those forms filled in to get the regulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Is there any other take? Just one second, Kika.
Yeah.
You can come in now.
Yeah, so I think we are moving towards now an online permitting system, because we realize the magnitude of hurdles we have to go through, specifically when we only have a few offices available for permitting. But small fishery guys, they've alluded to the fact that they do help with permitting applications on the ground, but it's not for everyone. It's, if you're available in that sector, then you can do it. With our sector, it's a bit more difficult because you have to, of course, get your application to our department and stuff. So I think information sharing on permitting, of course, is very vital, like we just mentioned now. But just to give you some kind of information about what we're trying to do is we're going to be piloting a permitting online system very soon. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Keegan. You can hear me, but for the sake of the team that's on the virtual, I need this no luck with the technology. Michael, you have some experience in terms of the permitting. How long did it roughly take you? I think it's good that we have someone who has recently applied for permitting. Just roughly, how long from the time you started submitting the?
I'll give you.
Yes.
One example.
Just one example. Yes, it's fine.
Okay, and I have to qualify one thing. So it took 4.5 months in total to get the facility for export certification. I owe most of that to Profundo Macan. Without his help, I don't know if I could have done, because he was the one who arranged the meeting with the correct people. I could not get responses. He forced a meeting to occur, and because he forced the meeting to occur and also made it very clear that he supported the concept of this project and expected everyone to be helpful, everything else was able to occur. And then on the other end of that, because I had already spoken with the official responsible from animal health already a year before, and I had personal correspondence with her, I was able to finish it. So from the beginning, it was because of I had met from the Makanda, and he has visited the farm and so forth. He knows about the project, and at the end, because of the one responsible for authorizing it, I also had some connection with them and able to explain in detail in a meeting what the requirements are, and we are able to finish it. But even with that, it took 4.5 months to do it.
I think that's thank you so much, Michael.
I think
Keegan?
I think context is also very important here because Michael's coming into a sector that hasn't really been well managed and regulated, in the sense that there hasn't really been big ornamental farms over the last few years. Some of them have been going under the radar from a freshwater aspect because of lack of legislation. I think the most important thing here that the provincial department needs to do with not having the overarching legislation such as the Agricultural Development Bill and the go-to department for freshwater agriculture in this province is to basically outline one of the pathways that one needs to follow in order to access a permit that Michael, or permits that Michael has obtained, and work with Michael to see if this is a potential budding industry or potential industry for the province that can assist with development in the province. I outline the path, work with a client such as Michael to outline the path so that it can be easier going forward, and work with ourselves as well in that process. We do have authorization guidelines, but they always need to be updated, with that valuable experience we've just gone through, the process, it'd be good to note it so that others can be easy to go inside information.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So, thank you for that further elaboration, Keegan. I won't go back to it. So in terms of the regulatory framework, what is it that we say we can keep? What is it that's working well that we can keep? Do you have a comment, Richard? Were you affected either positively or otherwise by regulation?
Good day, Richard Clark, Okay, so in terms of our industry, but this is more of a national thing than a regional thing. And it's actually an industry-wide problem, and that is the access to proper facilities, laboratories that can help with the food safety side of the with our industry. So for us to gain access to the EU market, to be able to export abalone as food for human consumption to the EU, we need to have laboratories that can make sure that there's no toxins available or toxins in the abalone that we export. We need facilities that are able to look at the microalgae that's coming in through our water to make sure that there's no toxins there. And these things, to be able to pass an EU audit, you have to have a laboratory that is certified to be able to do this work. And you need to have a backup laboratory for if that laboratory can't do, and the turnaround times needs to be within specified timeframes. We as a country cannot fulfill these requirements, meaning that up to now, and I think we've been working towards trying to gain access to the EU markets now for, 15 years or something, and we just haven't been able to cross that threshold. So it's definitely something that's holding back the industry. We have seen with COVID that there's no such thing as an unlimited market. All the abalone farms in South Africa suffered a lot when we couldn't export to our biggest markets. Having access to the EU would have been a big help. So these things are serious issues that we as an industry are addressing at national level, but maybe it's just worth it to highlight it at our region as well. So that, as we want to develop abalone ranching, as we want to produce more product that we need to sell into more places in the world, the EU is a huge market, and we're going to have to make some plan going forward to get this problem solved.
I'll come back. In your view, can we be correct to put this either under market, or because to me, if you are talking about market access and the infrastructure that is necessary to support market access, I'm not sure. Let's agree. Should we place that under market? Because to me, it's not talking about regulation. This is what the regulation cannot necessarily enforce. That we have the necessary infrastructure to support the industry? I'm not sure. I'm leaving that to you. Someone can assist me.
I mean, we have it under marketing as well to access the EU.
Yes.
So, it's not as far.
Let's say to access international markets, because EU is just one of the, because now it's EU, it could be okay. So we need the okay, thank you. I hope I captured your thoughts very well. You need laboratories and don't worry about spellings. What else except the laboratories? Are there other things? You touched on infrastructure, not only you. The issue of infrastructure, the road networks, the what. They seem to also constrain development of the small scale fisheries in terms of people going there to collect and whatever. I mean, from the discussions, you want to, am I on point?
I think from a provincial point of view, I think Richard, they have been battling for many, many years for that infrastructure to their side. You know, if we're going to be talking about provincial strategy for the greater good of developing agriculture for the country, you know, small things like, I say small, I mean, it's not small, you know, but small things like that, like assisting with basic infrastructure, having the correct channels, you have the correct networks in your province. If you're going to be the drivers of aquaculture as DRDAR, you know, then you need to be accommodating your farms in your province and assisting us in reaching out to these public works and roads in the Eastern Cape to assist with bettering your current sectors, you know, infrastructure to assist them, you know. That's a start. And by doing that, when you have more areas that need accessibility for farming, you know, then you can assist with them as well and stuff. But basic infrastructure is vital, specifically for the current industry, you know. So, yeah. And that just ties into your, you know, your APPs and aligning each other, you know, with different mandates. Like if you have this in your mandate, it needs to be aligned with the public works and roads, you know, so that you can assist each other in assisting the sector's growth. Yeah. But that's by one example.
Okay, so local government. All right. Is there anything that's working well? Because
you know,
is there? I don't know how to populate it.
From an infrastructure site selection point of view, you at the Eastern Cape are very fortunate if you have 4 aquaculture development zones. No other province has that. And you have the capacity or the potential to attract investment leaders. So, you know, there's a number of things that your strategy can look at there. You know, we literally just came from an awareness campaign by drafting, developing videos on all the ABZs in the country. And of course, the majority of them here in the Eastern Cape, working with those guys. So from that point of view, like marketing of your area, making profiles for investment, you know, it's important to showcasing it internationally, showcasing it nationally, the potential of your area. You've got the infrastructure. Some of that, mind you, needs to be reviewed with the agents managing it. You know, the cost of rental and stuff like that. If you are needing to attract investment into these zones, how do you make it, you know, pleasing and interesting for an investor to come in there if you have these sort of fees that you're going to be paying? So some, you know, the reviewing of these fees and stuff within agricultural development zones need to be looked at, you know, leasing fees and stuff. But again, that's, I'm going on a tangent here, but ideally what I'm mentioning is that you have this infrastructure. How you make sure that it is now accommodating on farms or accommodating to potential farms, and then can be actually accessed, you know. Yeah.
So what is it in short that would say we need to, if you talk now that we are talking about access to sites and water, what is it that we need to change? What is it that we need to keep?
I also have my hand up, Chairperson.
Oh, sorry.
Noted HOD, you will come in immediate. No, it's fine. Finish, Keegan. It's
So
fine.
there's two things. You have current sites
Mhm.
or, that needs to be accessed. So how do you get them accessible? Are you doing mass marketing of your sites? Are you creating incentives for those farmers who want to go in there? In terms of like leasing fees and stuff. What are the incentives when you offer farmers going into those sites? Are you working with transport? There's different sites you need to look at in isolation. And then you have potential sites that could accommodate inland aquaculture. Like, I think someone mentioned dams yesterday when they were talking to Andrew, I think it was the prof from Walton School University. What species can be accommodated there? Are these dams able to accommodate aquaculture in them? Are there new areas that can be explored further inland in the province that can accommodate agriculture? But my view is you have current sites, how do you make them, how do you push them first as a start instead of building new sites around the province? Get full attention on those in your strategy in terms of occupying those. HOD, sorry, you can't in my previous DDG.
People don't want to let go. Once you become their DDG, then you are DDG for life. Unfortunately, we own you now as the province. We own you. HOD, as you know.
No, thank
HOD,
you very
over
much.
to you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Some things you cannot escape in so far as in as much you can try to run away from. But I think I just want to indicate something. And indeed, I cannot agree more with Keegan. But I think, again, getting back to what I have indicated,
yes,
we are experts
we are with
in
you,
our
HOD.
own right.
We are with you, HOD.
Yeah, we know these things. We are experts in our own right in these things. We have said these things. We know what needs to happen. And I think until the time we do what needs to happen, we will continue talking and not seeing any tangible results. So I want to say, Chairperson, to Keegan, in response short, Keegan needs to come and spend 3 months of secondment in the Eastern Cape. Abongile needs to come and spend 3 months of secondment, at least in the Eastern Cape, including Gumandisile. And I want to tell them now, and Keegan, in response to what you are saying, the letter is coming. So you need to just come here for 3 months. That's it. And we get to do these things.
Thank you so much, HOD. I think Keegan gets it. He's just nodding, HOD. He's just nodding. I see. These Quebec people, I'm told, Keegan comes from East London and is nodding, HOD. Please come in.
Chairperson, the whole of fisheries and aquaculture in this country is led by people from the Eastern Cape, period. It's a fact.
We can't agree more, HOD. Come in.
I'm from Avalon Branching, we are currently working on the Avalon Branching project, where we're working with 17 communities. And these communities are scattered throughout the rural communities. So my concern is that when it's time for us to start implementing the project and start with all the processes that we want to do, road infrastructure is a problem. And it's going to strain our species when we need to take those species and export them to the Asian market. So I was hoping that in these engagements, we include public works, because it is something that they need to do now, because when we harvest in the next 8 years, we are going to see a problem. We're going to have a lot of fatalities from the species that will be harvesting from the ocean. So from my side, how can we get assistance from government and relevant stakeholders to ensure that we don't have a crisis? Thank you.
Yeah, that was a comment. And HOD, I'm glad that you had this, because maybe some of the efforts we do that maybe they are not reaching the right people. Maybe with your voice, HOD, you can be able to coordinate things at much higher level, so that we are able to get the much needed support to ensure that farmers and fishers who are harvesting their products are not disadvantaged in terms of losing their products due to water conditions.
No, absolutely,
Yeah.
Chairperson. I cannot agree with you more. It goes to the issue that I was saying. We each do something good in little corners, and something that we each put sometimes is not that sufficient. So we don't take the whole value chain in terms of starting to completion of the things that we do. So we each put these little things everywhere, and that's why we're gonna continue having these problems. So we kind of need to be saying we projectize what we do, so that we say we all congregate in doing something. What becomes the Dr. DAR's contribution in this? What becomes the ECDC's contribution? What becomes the next person's, next institution's contribution in that? So that we consolidate the kind of support that we do. If we don't take it in that approach, we will continue having these little things and little efforts that we are doing that are not going to show results. But I cannot agree more, Chairperson. That is well noted, and it is something that will take it up definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, HOD. Can you want to come in? Yes. He's emphasizing this, if I remember well, the issue of coordination seems to be one of the most important things within our discussion, be it on aquaculture, be it on the fisheries discussion. So coordination from us as government, I think this is calling for a reflection in terms of how we execute our mandates. As much as that our mandates are unique, I think we've got to find some space where we can work together in an integrated manner. Again?
Yeah, you've got, on that coordination thing and, having other departments, other stakeholders that are relative to the agriculture's growth in the province, like I was mentioning. You've got potential quick wins in the Eastern Cape. We're currently working with basic Oyster Farm in Port Elizabeth, Clabers. And, after zoning the agriculture development zone in Gold Bay, they've been very interested in partnering with small operators, nursery operators that can feed into their business, feed into their sales, because they've basically upgraded their processing facility. We had a chat with them now the other day. They've been taking the initiative and even talking to ECDC to see how they can assist these small operators that will feed into their business and their establishment. You certainly want a situation where there is a potential kind of health effect in Port Elizabeth or Clabers or Gold Bay. But what is happening at the moment now is that you are sitting with a massive situation, which is a pollution situation, by the metropolitan, Nelson Mandela Metropolitan, municipality. And that's affecting the growth of that sector there. We are sitting in the Agriculture Development Zones Management Committee on every second month.
Yes.
And we're not getting anybody from the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan Municipality there to answer to the situation of mismanaged or rather dilapidated infrastructure with regards to the sewage works that's affecting the pollution in the bay. We as the department, as the regulatory authority, have had to downgrade the bay in terms of its stature or in terms of the pollution within the bay and how it affects
food safety, as well as marketing.
So I'm just saying this, it's a knock-on effect. We've done the groundwork as provincial and national and private sector, but now we have a department or another stakeholder that's government that's affecting us and our development as a sector in your province. So, Nelson Mandela Metropolitan Municipality needs to be engaged with from a provincial point of view.
Can I respond, Chairperson, to that?
Yes,
you.
HOD, if you would not have responded to this one, I would have
Yes.
bullied you. I would have bullied you to respond, HOD, because this
absolutely.
this is a big issue and it's affecting the farm. The turnover of the farm is affected because now they got to introduce other mechanisms, because the downgrade from level A to B means they can't sell directly. So they'll have now to have other processes, and they have to be regular water monitoring to ensure food safety. So HOD, please come in, because the DFFE has done all that they needed to do. I have a list of all activities that they've undertaken, which has been shared with me recently, and I'll forward you HOD so that you are able to get a better understanding of the efforts that went into resolving the situation. However, as Mr. Hali is saying, the NMB is not coming into the picture. They seem not to be really not engaging on the matter, despite many invitations to even present at the AMC several times. I think from, if I'm not mistaken, from November last year or even earlier. It's been a while. There are efforts, but there hasn't been any response, and this is likely to impacting on the usability or even other stakeholders coming in, because now there can't be permits that are granted for other farmers to come into the bay. And the bay sits with a potential of R500 million, over R500 million, that's 600 million in total. That's the amount of money that can be generated from the bay. So now we cannot have those other investors coming in under the circumstances. So I thought HOD, I needed just not only to give you a bit of a background, but as well the colleagues who are here who may not be aware of the extent of the problem at hand. Thanks. Over to you, HOD.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Indeed, many of us are probably not aware. Myself as well, I was not aware of this. And thank you very much for giving the context and the information around this. I want to say this, colleagues. This again ties to the issue of coordination, including information sharing. There is three things that are a reality. The first one is that the sector of fisheries and aquaculture is less understood generally in the country and specifically in the province. So you are going to get people talking. In fact, we are in pains trying to tell people about fisheries and aquaculture and to make the separation, not just between the two sectors, but about the sector of fisheries and aquaculture itself. So you just hear people stand up on podiums and talk oceans economy, the 800-kilometer coastline, 800-kilometer coastline, oceans economy. And they confuse that with shipping, with manufacturing, with oil and gas, and everything else that happens within the context of oceans economy. And little they will even arrive at the fisheries and aquaculture component of it. So there is a big element of not knowing. So it will happen that even within municipalities, if there are things that need to be done, people are not going to move as fast as if you were talking about cows or something else, crop and any other thing that is known in this province, or automobile, for instance. So if you talk Mercedes-Benz, you talk VW, people may listen to you quickly. Once you talk fisheries and aquaculture, you seem to be talking something very strange that people don't even know or least care about. So there's that reality. And it calls upon us, how we really going to look another very important arm of awareness, raising the awareness and pitching this conversation where it should be. The second point, Chair, I want to say to you guys, you have an advantage, especially when it comes to the Eastern Cape. The advantage that you have is that not only that in the department now, the DRDAR, you have people who know this sector quite well, who have led in this sector. You have people who know the sector in the department itself. That's a huge advantage for you. Over and above We have a premier in this province who is so passionate about the issues of fisheries and aquaculture. The premier, every time and any platform, if he can pitch
HOD, you seem to be breaking up a bit.
and aquaculture, he does it, and he does it so well. So he's so.
HOD, we seem to be losing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's much better now, HOD.
It's much better now. Okay, thank you very much. So I was saying we have got a premier who is passionate about this sector, who wants to see this sector move forward. The third one is to say to you, with the specifics that you are talking to right now, let's utilize the IGR forums. The premier holds every quarter the premier's investment forum. He also holds intergovernmental forum every quarter. And that forum is attended by the MECs, the HODs, the municipal, the mayors, and all the municipal managers of all the districts and the LMs. So I want to say, and in those forums, we are often asked to talk on issues of economic development, where the bottlenecks are at, so that these things can be unlocked at that. So I'm saying we've got that advantage, and I am going to take it upon myself now that you are raising this, in fact, so that we can focus comprehensively on this sector and the things that need to be unlocked. At Munimac, the MEC of COCTA in the province convenes Munimacs equally on a quarterly basis, and HODs sit in that Munimac, HODs of economic cluster, which I'm part of that, sit in those. And in those forums, you are able to bring this. I'm telling you, colleagues, if we could have taken this matter either at the Premier's Intergovernmental Forum or at the MEC's Munimac, this matter would have been getting attention it deserves, and I dare say it could have been resolved far much earlier. So these are the platforms that I think are very much critical for us to know about, but also I do understand it. You will get assistance from us as the department to do the coordination on bringing up these issues at these platforms. But thank you very much, Chairperson. I would like to get the specifics of this matter. And as I say, I'm going to be tabling this at the Munimac, and I'm equally going to be tabling this at the Premier's Intergovernmental Forum.
Thank you.
Thank you, HOD. We are all nodding in the house. Please come in. Whether is that a question or comment is coming?
My name is Socio-Economic from ECSECC. I must say that a number of stakeholders yesterday, they complained about these sessions that we normally have, and that it's just talk shows. And it is important that after the session, we should have a way forward as ask the stakeholders that are available here to meet and take the issue of coordination and collaboration forward. ECDC has got a newly established unit which is called Economic Development Coordination and Sector Support, and one of the sectors that the unit focuses on is oceans economy. So if we do it together, because resources are available out there, however, there must be money impact, because it's a question, because we work it individually. So access to finance, ECDC has got another unit which is rural and enterprise finance and business support, where we offer the incentives, but we can't do it alone as a corporation. There's a oyster farm in Port Elizabeth that was referred to earlier. ECDC, we have funded a cooperative that is in partnership with them, So it's a win-win partnership because the others are getting the know-how and being part of the operations and even the management of the business. So it's a good one. So what I'm saying basically is that there's so much that we can offer, and in other areas of the province, we've got even properties that we can utilize for aquaculture, and now we need to be under the same roof, have a roundtable discussion, and actually, in the purpose to say how do we take this forward, and which would be the result of this strategy session. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Jose. I won't tell them that you are old friends. Yeah, otherwise, we are happy to hear that there is sort of collaboration and support. You say that's a cooperative that you're supporting? Is it the cooperative or that you're supporting, that you're in partnership with?
As the agency has said, that, you know, problem awareness and the know-how and where to get what. So if we can do it in a, like adopt that integrated or TDM approach, we can succeed.
Okay, so that talks to coordination in the main, eh?
Thank you. Yeah. So, you know, we have to think holistic here. So we have been dealing with ECDC for many years, and we've definitely working with them along with Rebecca as well with regards to this Rebecca alcohol by 80%. You know, but when we think holistically, you know, there's potential for almost like if you're talking about now skill development, mentorship, incubator, there's potential for an incubator around oyster farming within that Alcoa Bay area. So one of your strategic, objectives in terms of a project could be this potential hub for oyster farming in Alcoa Bay as a cluster, as an incubator for training capacity building within that area. That's something I'm just thinking out loud here, something we've been playing around with. And then tying to that, we have responsible departments or agencies. You can add ourselves, yourselves, ECDC, and possibly CEPA and CEDA as potential responsible agents or organizations. And then we can start sitting around and looking at that model and implementing that. But I think that Alcoa Bay, in this as an example, has potential to become a potential incubator for the oyster farming in that area and possibly other stuff, But that's one example, and there can be many around the problem. We have to identify ones we get right and then move along, we can't be all over the place. That's what has worried me in the past with this, is that we haven't done something right and then moved on. We try to do everything around it. But I think that's innovation, right? Yeah.
And partnership. I'm not sure, Richard, maybe I'm putting you on the spotlight, which I don't want to do. But I'm aware that we're doing some work on benching and this and that. There's capacity building around that. If there is, please highlight and then we see how.
Okay, as been said, thank you very much. I would just like to also throw my hat in the ring with regards to the problem with storage in the Nelson Mandela Bay. Our ranching project there, is jeopardized in that we have an FPE that's situated right next to the oyster farm, and they have also been influenced by the storage issue at the in the Nelson Mandela Bay area, in the harbour there. So I mean that is a serious problem, and we need to have it resolved. Okay, in terms of capacity building. In terms of the ranching project, now I just want to put that into a little bit of a perspective. My colleague Gandhi has referred to that a short while ago. What we're dealing with about 17 cooperatives. We're talking about 800 people involved, families involved in that project. That's just from outside. I mean, we're not the only players in this game. There are other co-ops that are also going launching for themselves. So there I can see one of the big challenges that we're going to be facing. And I think this is also relevant to the East Coast rock lobster situation that we have, is that there's not actually any targeted commercial diving qualification available for for divers that do not use scuba gear. So divers like the rock lobster fishermen who just swim out with masks and snorkels and dive for East Coast rock lobster, there's no qualification. If you're doing it yourself, you don't need any qualification. However, no company can employ somebody to do a job which might be dangerous, which they have not been trained, have not received adequate training for. That creates a legal problem for any company that wants to employ these community members so that they can dive the envelope in the future once we get to the point where harvesting permits are being issued. So this is a fairly long-term thing. I mean, envelope granting is going to be several years yet before we get to the point where we can start harvesting envelopes. But I think we need to use the interim period to look at creating the kind of a skill qualification where you can give somebody an actual certificate being a diver, but not necessarily for scuba gear. There's no such, it's not allowed for in the dive regs in terms of the Department of Labour. If you today want to have a diving qualification, you have to become a commercial diver at a huge cost. I mean, you're talking about at least 40 to 50,000 rand just to get a level 4 commercial diving qualifications. Those are required. I mean, the most basic requirements. You need to be able to work in black water. You need to be able to, do all kinds of things. It's like asking a Boeing pilot to drive a taxi. You don't need that kind of qualification to do the work, but you do need some training and some education and some skills to be able to legally do that work.
I want to make sure that I capture your thoughts very well. You said at the moment there is no diving qualification.
Commercial diving qualification.
No commercial diving.
For snorkeling, yes.
So it doesn't exist now at the moment.
No, you don't have to have a qualification of snorkel, but in the working environment, yes, they would like to employ people that have some sort of skill and qualification.
Okay. So if I hear you right, you're saying in the country at the moment, that certification is not there.
When talk is Saidi because basically look what is
comment.
I saw your hand.
Please grab your cheek and be comfortable. Maybe, a few minutes break, maybe. How is that? I think we've been. Yeah, some of us,
It's going to be.
Yeah, you are welcome after signing to grab tea and 7 minutes be refreshed.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairperson. From Saidi. He is quite right that maybe it's necessary that we maybe give some direction in this one. Saidi completed an aquaculture skills inventory and needs analysis research in 2017, which gives direction on the gaps that are required in aquaculture, and exactly what you are alluding to, Richard. It's one of the recommendations that were made. And I think there's other stakeholders. I think the second is becoming more bigger because aquaculture is qualified as the likes of public works, which needs to be part of this conversation and maybe guide in the area of commercial divers, etc. I also do want to say we have aquaculture expert group where we look at the skills, how can we intervene, make proper intervention, and who are the necessary institutions that are driving those particular qualifications. We work closely with the National Department, Keegan and Agrarian. They are very much instrumental in that. So I would welcome people who want to be part of those skills and capabilities to touch base with me. I will gladly invite you to our meetings. We have quarterly meetings, and I must say, we were the universities, we were TVET colleges. A month ago, we had a workshop on TVET participation, and aquaculture was one of the areas that was kind of instrumental in making sure that we prioritize on the necessary participation. And I am kind of disappointed that the gentleman from Agrarian was here yesterday, and I don't see him around. And I think Agrarian is very much necessary as part of an ideal stakeholder. Also to make sure that we know and target on the areas that needs to be accredited. We have the likes of Harib, which still needs accreditation. People go to Harib for training, but it's a non-accredited intervention. We have the likes of Johnny, which would like to see a similar trend for the Eastern Cape to have a demonstration center or rather have another education program again that will look at other marine resources. So we need to get those facilities with the necessary accreditation. And I can't see the gentleman today, but if I see him, I'll let you know, Chairperson. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Simon. She doesn't see the gentleman and won't ask many questions. With that, let's have tea for 5 minutes and refresh the case. Thank you. Morning to the colleagues here at Regent. It is time that we start. We're a bit generous with the time because we knew that if we allow you time to enough time to refresh, by the time we start, we'll be much quicker because we'll all be refreshed. We have started this morning, and Michael gave us an overview of his farm and the processes that he had to follow, and some issues regarding permitting and the species and the market opportunities at hand. Thereafter, I gave an overview of the areas that we need to address in developing of our strategy. I must say that there has been extreme engagement and robust engagement this morning. Let us now again look at this and refine whatever needs to be refined, and ensure that at least by 12:30 we should have wrapped up. Is there any addition or any thoughts that have come as we reflected more on what needs to be done and what is currently being done? Again, with an informal engagement with you, and you have some interesting thoughts you need to share with the colleagues. May I ask that all of us we continue engaging. Thank you. Over to you, Kiran.
So another collective project that we could probably push under the strategy for basically collective assistance in terms of budget sharing and resource sharing. I think it's still a bit premature, but I thought I'd let you know, just for your own information. We've been working, we have a couple of plans to develop an urchin actually in Hamburg. We've been talking with the Crucial municipality there. DRDAR has been working with us as well. Mainly at the moment now on the nursery side as wasted, as Andrew alluded to us yesterday. But it's also shown interest in the urgent side of things as well. With all that information we received when we did some trials in Hamburg with urchins, we thought, let's push it a bit further, maybe creating a multi-type, species type hatchery within Hamburg, nursery for oysters, hatchery for urchins, potential abalone as well. Ideally, we've basically in February applied to the FAO, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, for a cluster type project around South Africa that will involve Carib, with the catfish that side there and training capacity building. That will involve Zebe district in the Popo, with tilapia. It's going to involve Saldanha Bay and kelp farming, potential kelp farming, as well as Hamburg in the Eastern Cape for urchins / abalone / oyster, which is kind of an integrated type cluster approach to developing the sector. Just to give you some context, FAO came to us in around November. They visited a few areas within the agriculture sector, highlighted gaps, and provided potential solutions based on their kind of modeling around the world. And they identified those 3 areas as potential development catalyst type initiatives. So the point I'm trying to make is that we've gone for the second phase of the funding application in May. We provided the supporting documentation, and now we're waiting now for the approval. Hopefully, it's coming in July. And we're just happy to announce that the Hamburg would be in the Eastern Cape would be one of those cluster projects, with the potential of rolling out urchin culture within the Eastern Cape, and Hamburg being the centralized sort of middle, how what it makes it. So that could be another initiative to help with catalyzing agriculture development in the province. Again, it's another example, but one of them. But I think if we level these projects high, with the collective effort, I'm sure we can achieve it, because we'll need the support of the agencies within the Eastern Cape, the relevant departments, the municipalities, like I'm sure, and unfortunately, yourself. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other additions? This was very, very important. Again, so you said it will be oysters, abalone, and urchins. So you have already put the application from FAO, and
We can say the 2 minutes.
oh, okay. All right. Any comment? There's who's starting? I want to check online. Are there hands too?
Over to you,
Thank you again.
We welcome this chairperson. Sincere apologies. I'm not able to raise the hand, but we take note of what Keegan is saying. We are going to be watching the development quite closely. I do recall when the pilot for the sea urchins was done at the PD site, it was quite very successful, in fact. And of course, the market opportunity was very clear, the offtake was very clear. So this is something that we welcome, and we're going to be watching these developments quite very closely. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, HOD.
Thank you, sir. I think just to add on what the HOD touched on, we also welcome that program. Again, and would need to just to unpack on the intervention from the skills point of view. How can we collaborate and make sure that we fast track the rolling out? But over and above that multi-species approach, in your engagement with FAO, have you spoken about polyculture, maybe? Because I know they support other countries in that area, and I mean, we need to at some degree look at integrated
approach to aquaculture or food security in the province? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I see a hand. You want to respond here? From the office? Thank you.
So polyculture is known globally. You know, that's something the Chinese have been doing that for ages, you know, for ducks on top of tilapia farms and stuff like that. What the FFO was emphasizing to us is that they've been pushing aquaponics in rural areas. Okay, so they didn't touch more polyculture, they brought that up, they brought the multi-trophic kind of aquaculture, the beneficial with farms are basically like species that kind of like coexist and, you know, beneficial to the environment as well, you know, such as like oysters and kelp and mussel. But what they emphasized on for freshwater aquaculture was specifically in rural type areas that have no money to kind of like build these big farms, is they were emphasizing on aquaponic systems that are for subsistence usage. So, I mean, just to give you a bit more context, they came down for about 3 weeks. They held a training course that all the provincial representatives went to. That was how that non-professional experts said. That was purely on aquaculture in general. But then for another week, they sat down with a couple of the experts in Garib, a number of the guys within our department, to come up with a aquaponic system. They brought in, I think, 3 aquaponics experts, one from Nigeria, one from the Czech Republic, and there was a gentleman from America as well, and to help us design a kind of like they call it the 5K system, the 5,000 rand system, that would basically be an aquaponic system with fish, but with more emphasis on the plant production, with, you know, as an additional add in the fish there, but mainly for nutrition to the plants. They need to still come back to us. They've been defining the model, and it's something that we would like to workshop with the freshwater sector going forward once we have defined the model that we were looking at. But ideally, that they designed to assist with the rural communities that are isolated from, you know, electricity and other sorts of infrastructure that can rely on solar, and everything was kind of like costed in this 5K system. But then they also helped us with a larger system. I think the infrastructure cost there was more or less about 500,000, and they want to pilot it at Garib with the species of plants that can be grown in that kind of climatic conditions. Plants that can be grown during winter, plants can be grown during summer months, and they're going to try to pilot it there for about a year or two, 2 seasonal cycles basically, to see if we can then use that as a food security system elsewhere around the country with those specific, with different other plants that could be cultured. So they gave us a lot of information. We're waiting on the feedback from them still of developing the 2 models. But polyculture, just to answer the question, wasn't really brought up. They were emphasizing more on aquaponics as food security.
Thank you so much. The question will be why I think the Eastern Cape is raising its hand also to say we would welcome a pilot even in the Eastern Cape. I wanted to take you, Keegan, on the incubation or the culture of fish, abalone, urchins, and oysters number. Yes. I want to find out about the role of other stakeholders in action to government, the industry. Because surely industry knows, you know, they've perfected the technology. They understand the markets probably better than ourselves as government. But I have been unfair to you, sir. Apologies. I got carried away.
Okay, thank you very much. One quick question for me, I'm not sure it was then. Yesterday there was a presentation of the muscle rehabilitation, which was, I think, WWF. And for that project, I was studying at the University of Transvaal. I think we made that breakthrough. It was 25 years back with Professor Dai and Professor Isaac, whereby you used previously for the issues of muscle rehabilitation around the areas like West and all that. So what I'm trying to say, it is one of the things that I think we should think about it. Because remember, those communities are just closer to the land, to some of the reserves, which are diminished in terms of the outside the reserves. We did a lot of studies, absolutely nothing. So if we can use those local people, as I said, just people, even needs to high technology, a griller and all that to try to. So if they can do that and seed and all that, then we have that sort of self entitlement that are part of the person in terms of co-management. And also benefiting in terms of the land. And what was being presented, it's just only for food security. But muscles, they can even still be able to try to export because you get it like but ocean baskets and all. It's not a local sort of species. So I'm not sure in terms of government, and like I said, you know, WWF said NGO, as I said, it is the technology is not very expensive in terms of the strategy like within the province. But I'm thinking like in terms of that, you said. The other issue I just want to raise, I'm not sure whether it falls within this. There is this issue which was very critical by Mr. Clark. This issue of trying to assist people who wanted to transport live lobsters straight to them. Remember, that is where you get quite high value. You see that if on the government, I'm not sure whether Richard alone will be able to do that task. You need some sort of government intervention. Even with other will get exported line. That's where you get a much more higher value when you see that. So if there can be some sort of systems to see that, so that not just you have to try it or else before you export itself. So those sort of initiatives and how, because there are examples which are there for example, some of the companies, like the one is one about they're able to do it. Some in Cape Town, they're able to export also like the live. So I'm not sure whether that one is just like because the anger, like sometimes you see, which comes to people, they want to see immediate benefits in terms of the profits, etc. So if you speak about something like which are long term, so there are examples which are there for it, which you can just start picking from them without them. So I wanted to comment on that. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wants to comment further or elaborate or expatiate more on what it's saying? Just 1 second, Richard. She hasn't. Oh, you have spoken. So she has. You say the lady should go first.
The lady go first.
Okay. Good.
Maybe just to comment or to add on to what the gentleman is saying, when you're making an example of the mussels, that the mussels could be something that these fishers take to the markets because you've got your ocean baskets, etc., that you are talking about. A challenge that we need to understand, and maybe when we are finding these innovative solutions, is to understand that we are working with various communities in various places, and there are guidelines and rules in terms of how you transport that particular species to that market. Does that person have the correct vehicle with the correct temperatures to get to ocean baskets? Does that community meet the volumes that ocean basket needs? And also, is the mussel harvested the right way? Because you need to understand that there are also guidelines to these things. As much as where you are, when the way they're doing it, they're just harvesting and eating it at home. There's no regulation that that person needs to adhere to. There are no guidelines that that person needs to adhere to. But if you now are going to be transporting your mussels from Glacier to East London, then there's a completely different dynamic together. And also one of the challenges that I alluded on in terms of the transportation, that species is going to experience a lot of trauma because of the road infrastructure that is not in accordance to the standards for it to get to where it's supposed to be. That is why in the Eastern Cape it's difficult to link these small-scale fishers to the market. It's unlike in KZN, where there is the rural areas, but the road infrastructure is good. You know what I mean? So those are the things that we need to take into consideration. Yes, there are opportunities for them. Yes, we would love to assist them because we work with them. We are aware of the species that are in the basket. But when you go to your IMJ, or when you go to your Woolies, or when you go to or whatever service provider that is going to be the end user of that product and put that product on the shelf, the quality in which it arrives to that final destination, is it in accordance and does it meet the targets? So I hope I'm making sense as to your question or your comment.
Thank you so much. But I think the question, or as much on the same token, we're asking the question, we should be saying also, what can we do to ensure that we support our farmers so that that product reaches the market? Otherwise, unless there is some form of investment, our small scale fishers or aquaculture producers will remain at the periphery. Okay, there was an end, yes. You, Richard, then it.
Okay, I think I'll make Gando's heart happy here. She's forgetting about the seaweed producers, seaweed harvesters along the coastline. As far as I know, there was a company that in the distant past has purchased sort of coralline algae that inhabit into tidal zones, where people small-scale collectors have collected that seaweed and then bagged it, and then. But I think very much due to the very poor infrastructure, the distances involved. I mean, all of those things drive the costs up, and it's now in a situation where there's no longer a offtake for those people to sell the seaweed that they collect. And I think that is definitely something that we in the Eastern Cape should be looking at. Yes, because there are definitely some of these seaweeds are the final market is here in developing very expensive chemical compounds out of those seaweeds that end up in the cosmetics industry, that kind of thing. So there are channels. It's just not easy. We need to look at how do we improve that situation.
I'm just trying to check if we haven't got any hands. Thank you so much. Very, very valuable inputs. I just want to find out, you still have something, Richard? Oh, okay, finish and answer. I think they're going to follow this.
Okay, just a question from my side, because I don't know what the status is, but many years ago, there was a facility at the Mthatha Dam that was research into aquaculture and stuff like that. That was in fact the inspiration for the Avalon farm that we got into. I don't know, is that facility still operational? Is it still going? Is it still doing anything? I'd just like to put that question to the floor.
Okay, thank you. Over to you. Sir, I will respond.
Izolo besithetha ngekho ezifileyo. Andizazi ke kuthethwa ngemarketing. Sesithebele kwimarketing. Ngigqibele mina kuzawuvuswa iibhoko zizokwenza kubekho products. Then okwesithathu ke ngoku kuthethwa ngemarketing neendlela ezirongo zohamba kuyiwe kuyothathwa. So kandiyazi isystem karhulumente mhlawumbi ke kuthwa ngolo hlobo. Kodwa mina ulwazi endinalo amazwi endinawo iprojekthi inantsika ibhizinesi enziwa ngurhulumente idla ngohambiswa phezulu. Umzekelo, bekhe sathatha i-KS, more than KS, sixoxa ngembavusi eyenziwa ngamaChina kwenziwa into yonke neekomitini, izinto eyenziwa ngembavusi nje yodwa. Kwakhona neebhajethi ezinkulu zoo-ECDC, noo-ICDC njalo njalo. Sayibona sayigcina imali engange-4 million, sihamba iintlanzi qha. Yasuka embavusi seyilinyiwe kwezinye ilali, 3 hectares, 300 hectares. Ezo mbavusi nazo ahleli. So ndithetha ukuthi ke mhlawumbi kubuyilo olenzakayo xa i-government involved nokuqawula ibhizinesi. Because aba bantu benekho uqasha le nto bayapenshina lo nyaka kungena abantu abatsha abangayaziyo le nto ithethwa izo. Mhlawumbi kwenzeka loo nto yazi. Kodwa ke mna into ebendicebisa yawugqiba ndihlale phantsi. Manje kuthiwa le system siyisebenzisayo nge-outer resource approach. Ukulanda abantu bengekho uthi funeka bahambe ngomgca. Ngale fika abantu bayixhase yonke le nto yohamba ngomgca ubekiwe, bahambe benze wabo umgca. So benza nje mna, what about khe kwenziwe i-workshop phaya ezantsi abantu kufakwe ibhizinesi abakube entloko qha abantu bazakwenza le nto. Kuba i-government officials ekugqibeleni sihamba ngapha kwecingo sijonga abo bantu baxhenza bona badlala ngetrektara bebephiwe bakaloku bavele baphiwe itrektara benxilile abantu uyaqonda. Khe kulungiswa abantu on the ground and i-process okanye into yolungisa abantu uyabona idemocratic community iquka nje yonke into nalunxila lutaphelali nalurayi. So khe kulungiswe kuqala ii-community zeziya zikwazi ukuyenza yenzeke. That is why mna ndisebenzisa abantu abaneefama ndabathatha ndanabo eBloemfontein sotreyinwa mhlawumbi le mindset. So besitreyinwe nasibuya urhulumente sifuna umhlaba, urhulumente aba bantu bonke ndimndenzo nomhlaba. Yonke laa group besiye phaa ithenje silinganyoka umhlaba, urhulumente uthetha entla and sekho abanye abantu bazazithuba bagxothiwe abakuqala bebekho. Uyaqonda? Kukho into ezinjalo kufuneka sizame into yobana kwenye ilali bekusuka laa nto kuthiwa yi-olive oil. Bazi bakhe intonga abantu babangumnqa lo. Umahluko uphathwe enanskeni kwasilayini. Lo mnquma uthathiwe unikwa kufakwa amanga. Xa ilali yalwa ngokunxuma. So i-community ngazothetha ngawo kufuneka uvule intloko straight uzawuthetha ne-community and uzayilungisa kuqala ngale bengengayithetha kwangeni. So masingathethi ngathi siseka ngento ezakwenzeka ayizokwenzeka. Bazabe nepensionile bona abarhulumente bakhoyo. Uyaqonda? Tela milaba yabe kusithiwa kulungiselelwa bona. Enkosi mhlawumbi kwami. Sorry uba ndiyithethe.
Most kakhulu, any other thing? I've noted your question. I've noted the comments coming from that.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I think from what is saying, especially when it comes to community. When I was working for the Department of Economic Affairs, Environment and Tourism, we had a very progressive program. It's I think implementer that we were implementing with Eastern Cape Development Corporation, we funded a fish farm in the Amalinga fish station. And that program, such classification is Aquaculture Development and Enhancement Program. It involved communities
And first of all, we've decided that for it to work well, we need to have a very clear way of doing it. We had a triple P arrangement where the government had its stake, the community in a form of a trust had its stake, and the private partners were involved. So we started this with research through Rhodes University. I think we're working with Tule and Mr. Toplin by then. And then they came up with a very good business plan with clear costing. And after that, as a leading department by then, that was DRDAR, we took it to different partners to fund the initiative. So that initiative was funded initially with a tune of 3 million through ECOFAS DRDAR. So we had different stakeholders with deliverables. We first signed an agreement with different stakeholders, for instance, with the Rhodes University for research and development, with DRDAR to look at environmental impacts, challenges, where they look at cultivation challenges and all other things involved, like waste management and all that. And even we had also ECSECC as a partner, but then we never had to talk to you. It was not ECSECC as much. We had DAF, Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, together with MCM, Marine and Coastal Management. They are also part of that program by then, because we're trying to get all specialists to be under one roof at that particular time. We also had water affairs, especially when it comes to issues of water quality, testing of water and all that. We had all those stakeholders under one roof, and we had INJ as a private partner. We went to a study tour with our partnership beneficiaries in Cape Town, so that they can understand and see the operations. Because you notice I understand what is expected by the market. Because IMJ was saying we are prepared to do a development program. We assist and we also pay from you guys. So it was led by military veterans, and it was even funded by all department, defense department by them. It's almost like what went wrong. Yes, it sounds like there's good coordination, good everything, stakeholders are coming, there's a good business plan in place. What went wrong? Yeah, and even was even there to look at matters of marketing, and even fish specialist that is already then was also part of the program. It's almost by the community. When instead, the prioritization yabo when sifaka imali behlala ku-PSC, ku-project steering committee zabo, was when there was money. Yes, they were prioritized by very expensive computers. Each and every PSC member having a computer that you do not even know what it is they are going to do with such laptops. And I do not love this. Also, and also having the treaty cards, the phones, and also transports. They got a very lovely balance. They never looked at
infrastructure, because remember, America Fish Station is having different small dams within the station as well, where you would need to maintain even the infrastructure, the pumps, electricity, and everything. So when Tina as officials were trying to give them direction as eco-community to say, why can't we start with operations, the actual operations of the business? And also to sustain what you are doing, there's a lot of land, piece of land around. Zamani can be veg because even the manure you get it from in waste just to come because that fish. So sometimes you can just take the garbage and everything. But yeah, for example, you involve people who do not know what they are doing, who do not even have interest of what they are doing, and also when if funding government is there to satisfy needs or not to sustain the actual project. So it ended up dying because when we're looking for the second leg funding, no funder was interested to do that because of spending pattern of ECSECC projects. So this thing is 12, guys. It can be done, but only if you do it with people who understand the actual industry and understand all the dynamics involved in the actual industry. But if we will keep on imposing projects to our people to say aquaculture is the way to go, and people are not that much interested, I think as government officials think.
I think what she has just said, she said the more truth, and is in full agreement of what Mr. Ndabani has raised, because he said the mindset, the interest, you know. So you are touching on most of the things that actually affect us as government. Because sometimes we try, not sometimes, the heart of government is the community. So we do our best that when the expanding coming in, sometimes the funds are not used for what they are supposed to be used for. So it is a big challenge. You are who need to respond. I hope you come with a solution. Please, Richard, tell me what formula can we have that will ensure that our communities, once funding comes in, then it's used for what it's supposed to be used for.
Chair, I think as a company, we have thought long and hard about exactly this situation, and I want to applaud the lady there about the problems that was experienced in this project. Yesterday, there were some comments made. Some people were unhappy. Pretty much the deal that we put on the table with all of these co-ops was, we need 51% of the shareholding in the JV company that's going to run this project because it has to run as a business. There is no chance. This is not, in the end of the day, for the thing to be sustainable, it has to run as a business. You cannot expect community members who has no experience, no prior experience, who have dire need. They are living on the breadline, who have dire need to expand or to act in a way that that money is not used up for solving the immediate problems. So the solution from our side, each and every one of the 70 communities that we've got signed shareholders agreements with, is that, and this is not about wanting to be the big player and wanting to go run away with all the money. This is about making sure that these projects stay sustainable over the long haul. I cannot go to my shareholders and say, listen, guys, we're going to invest millions and millions of rands into this project, and it has to be subjected to this problem, the social problem that we sit with in this country. So, this is the plan that we've made. I think we've got a best shot at it. I understand the problem is 100%. I'm not a marine biologist, I'm a development economist. I know there was yesterday another economist in the room. So you have to understand the problems that we deal with in these kinds of projects. So I would say the solution to this is partnering with companies that know all of these things, that can do it. Hence my comment yesterday, where some of the other officials of the department was concerned about, okay, well, what about the value chain, value chain? I think there are very good models that is used, and the WWF will know exactly how these things work, is to put fair trade structures in place to make sure that the economic partner doesn't run away with all with all the money, that the economic partner doesn't enrich itself at the cost of the communities. What you need is a fair deal. You need, and then proper functional oversight to make sure that that fair deal is enforced going down the line. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you have gone some way to address some of the issues. The time is up, I was told. And you see earlier there were smiles, but I see of late there are no smiles from somewhere. Let me just ensure that I don't have hands online. It looks like we haven't got any hands online. Colleagues, let me thank you for the interaction. I think I need to respond to your earlier question, Richard, about Mthatha Dam. We did revamp the facility a few years ago, but crime in that area is a big challenge. We had instances where the electrical cable to the facility was dug out by whoever. So as the department, it's not easy for us. That's the taxpayers' money. We put it back again, and these people, they come and dig again. We have to account for these funds, but we have to find a way of working around that. In the meantime, we are considering having a small aquaculture demonstration facility at Duni. So we believe from the crime perspective, that should not be an issue because it will be already inside. But otherwise, I had some engagements with Prof. Okute earlier, and she's also concerned that how do we let such a facility not to be in use. But yeah, crime is a social issue in South Africa. It's a social ill. So we are stuck, but we need to work around that. We can't just ignore that fully, because we did invest quite a bit of the taxpayers' money. You want to come closer to guide? Okay. I think we'll hand over to you. Tata, or you call it the other guys? Okay, thank you. Tata, Subile, we have heard your concerns and strong feelings that you're raising about how we do things, and but at the end of it all, the community also there's a role to play, because the government can facilitate, but the main role of the government is to create the environment where business can thrive, where the community can actively participate, Otherwise, if we think that the government will set us all, it can happen maybe in the next 1,000 years, because the government must serve you, must serve the other, must serve, As government, we try to assist, but at the end of it all,
the responsibility lies with the community. If it's a business, it has to be a business. It must prove that, you know, they sell so many cabbages, so many fish, so many whatever, and harvest so many. And at the end of it, it should make some economic sense. So I'm sorry, and yeah, you are right. The attitude of the community and the cooperatives has to change. They have to see this as businesses, but that's also their responsibility, not entirely the responsibility of the government. We are waiting for the rest of the team members to get further direction, and there was no hand online. Let me take this opportunity to thank you for fruitful engagements. I hope I tried to capture most of what you said. We will sit together with my team member at a later stage to refine whatever needs to be refined. So please, police, if you will be able to assist when we ask for further petitions and this and that, or maybe we circulate the draft that we have to the team members. Then you give us input, or rather look maybe as to whether we're able to cover the area sufficient as you have raised them. Thank you so much. Over to you, Breakaway. Yeah, we wrapped up the last session. So now it's back to the main.
We still have lunch.
It's actually on the board, actually.
What you do?
But you are seeing most of the time. I can't nazi kodwa kukhona kwisam screen.
I know.
Oh, she's still. From me, the facilitator of the aquaculture session, thank you so much, HOD, and to other team members. We apologize for the glitches earlier on when we started. Thank you so much, and thank you for the fruitful inputs, HOD and the other team members. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, colleagues. I think let's just bear with us for last 40 minutes. We've got just about 40 minutes to conclude the workshop. I would like to call on guys who are moving from other commissions to come back, so that we got a target that was set that at 1:30 we must close this session. And if we don't do that, the viewer will have to account. Let's give it, guys on the online organization a minute to allow the guys who are moving from other rooms to come in.
Njoba.
My assumption, okay, never, but I think I'm getting there also. Okay, which group? My task is very simple this afternoon, is to make sure that the 3 groups will report back, and also my other instruction that was given to me, we're not gonna really discuss the inputs from different groups. We'll have a chance to discuss these inputs when we're coming back to consult on the draft 1 of the strategy. Now, this will give a chance to the team that will be developing the actual document. They will take all those input to put it in a document, and then this platform will have a chance to discuss the inputs once at that stage. I'm standing here trying to see if Mandy, are you the first one? Justice, are you the first one? Who's going up first? And colleagues online, HOD, and I'm seeing there's a group here that is written on the flip chart. We don't have a way of showing the flip chart on the screen. You'll bear with us there. You'll have to listen to them when they are presenting. You can't see what they've written. Justice, are you the first one to present? It's yes or no?
Yes, I can take the opportunity.
Okay. You only have 10 minutes to summarize your input.
You don't have another 2 hours as you were writing. You only have 10 to summarize, please. Okay, Justice.
Thank you so much, Mr. Batanda. When your senior talks and give marching orders, you don't have many options. You just need to take the marching orders. Otherwise, thank you so much, Mr. Matanda. Colleagues, as you could be aware that 2 hours sounds long, but somehow as we start to engage, we realize that it's not long enough. I must also say that as we try to capture someone's thoughts, and the person could have talked under a particular heading, but we felt that this point should fall under a particular heading. So for now, let's not worry much about where things are. We know we'll still do the cleaning, take the whatever need to be taken to the appropriate place. Let me start. We obviously talked to the areas that we needed to cover. The countdown begins now, Mr. Matanda, it's 12:43. Okay. In terms of the regulatory framework, there is acknowledgement that the regulations are there. But now, how do we translate that at the province to ensure that there is proper support for our farmers? Because our farmers would not know where to go. So, as Dr. DRDAR is a champion at provincial level, we have to ensure that we coordinate. We picked up that there is coordination of visits, of this and that, to support the implementation of the regulations. There is now, at national level, an online permitting, which will address the issue of staffing, which becomes a challenge in terms of permits and permitting. On the issue of access to sites, we are aware that the Eastern Cape being a resource abundant province, there are dams and rivers, which some will be used for abalone, not dams and rivers for abalone, sorry about that. The dams and rivers will be exploited for new species which will be developed. The issue of road infrastructure was raised sharply in this meeting as both affecting the issue of abalone and other species. The whole value chain basically need to be considered. The issue of pollution at Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, Algoa Bay, was raised sharply. And we're lucky to have the HOD to listen to the issue, even though it was brief. This has to be addressed. We also need to push to identify other sites for further development. The mass marketing of sites, including the IDZs, has also been identified as one of the issues needing our attention. The leasing fees, where sites are available as the IDZs, need to be considered. In terms of diversification of research and development, an sea action hatchery has been planned for Hamburg. Trials have been done already. Funding of by FAO is being sought. So yeah, on that particular issue, the research into species diversity in the Eastern Cape is to be undertaken. DFE working together with Dr. DRDAR and other stakeholders will ensure that that happens. In terms of sustainable development of aquaculture and fisheries, for this to happen, there's to be awareness sessions as aquaculture is to some, not even though not very new, but there's a need for more and more awareness to be created. The IGR platforms, forums are some of those areas where awareness will be undertaken, including so this awareness is necessary at high level of structures as well as at mid and lower levels. So the municipalities also are key in terms of awareness. What also came through in the discussion at some stage is that the municipalities also need to be capacitated to some extent so that they can be able to communicate this relevant information to our communities as well. In terms of market access and value chain addition, the issue of infrastructure, the laboratories and pack houses for packaging of these high value species need to be looked at if you are to have a sustainable aquaculture and fisheries sector, because it doesn't help for fishers and aquaculture producers to produce if the product will perish. We need to remember that we need to meet also the stringent EU and other international market requirements. So in terms of support to the commercial farmers, maybe it's to the commercial farming communities, maybe this is one of the areas that we need to look at as government to say, how can we better support the industry? But obviously that does not happen. It has to happen together with the support to our small scale fishers and aquaculture producers who also have to graduate into this. They should not remain only in food security and subsistence, but they have to grow. And if you want me to call it graduate. So I think I've already covered that substantially. Development finances, the development finance, CEDA, ECDC in partnership. Also, we also learned that FAO also is willing to come on board and pilot some of the programs. So there cannot be long-term sustainability unless there's development finance. Because what happens in South Africa, when you look at the landscape of aquaculture, you have the developed commercial sector and almost non-existent subsistence and small-scale sector. Skills development and capacity building, CEDA, ECDC, the CETA should also come on board because CETA has usually a lot of funds for capacity building. I see other colleagues will also raise hands regarding that one. Then effective coordination has also been identified as one of the key issues that need to be addressed. The pollution at Algoa Bay, which I discussed also when I looked at the market, because lack of coordination and willingness to take responsibility at Algoa Bay impacts negatively on the market. So some of these issues that are cross-cutting. For now, I'll stop here. I saw that my senior intimidated me. He gave me 10 minutes, but even when it's 7 minutes, but you see, if it's your senior and this is the season where our performance gets evaluated, so one can't talk much. You say, I take the marching orders.
Just as know how to use time efficiently. He spent 3 minutes introducing the concept. Now that's why he wasted lots of time. Now he's got 7 minutes talking on these other 3 minutes was introducing the presentation. I can give, is there anyone wants to just add something on what Mr. Maluleka has just said from the group? I'm not really.
I'm being bullied. The chairperson is not calling me by my title. Please, chairperson. Can you call me? Thank you.
Okay.
Now I can leave.
Oh, yeah, now. But he said, when I asked him, he said he's fine that I call him Justice. Now he embarrassing me in front of everyone. Hey, Justice, I don't know this thing. Okay, thanks, colleagues. Is there anyone who wants to just add on what Dr. Maluleka presented on behalf of the group? Okay, it seems the group is happy. No more additions. Ms. Mandisa? Can't you save it on a stick so that, you know, when once we start to move this thing out, can't you save it on a stick and we, or you fine? Because we're gonna lose if light up here. If we lose it, we use this computer.
Lusanda.
Mandisa, we editile le lapha ku view. Okay, we good to go. Matter we can email to viewer your past. It didn't go.
Can you check? Can you say that?
It's like here.
Yeah.
Online. Online. You send online.
What do you mean online?
Joining the virtual. Remember?
Okay, no, we'll still keep the computer here, but it's not projecting. Then I
Because we want it showed just the presentation.
Oh, yeah. Yes, listen.
Okay, we've got a technical challenge on we're having a technical challenge. Man, let's use your computer. I think HOD will bear with us. Is that now we are struggling to get the computer from ECSECC moving.
Hey, I'll still put it here though, so I can.
Yeah. Okay, it will take a confirm on the class. Mandy, go ahead.
Afternoon, HOD and the colleagues. My name is Sanduna. I'm representing the Fisheries Commission. I'll be very brief, colleagues, because of time. But the template that we're using, we had focal areas where we're highlighting the current status quo, the challenges, proposed interventions, as well as the desired outcome. In terms of regulation framework, where we are standing as a country, the regulations are there. There is Marine Living Resources Act, that is the regulating body. What the problem now is, I think we highlighted a lot of challenges yesterday, and we had a very heated argument in terms of fisheries resources. Now what we've done, we come up with the interventions that we highlighted. So then in terms of regulation framework, there are issues with capacity and lack of understanding of regulations, the communities, the fishers, the officials, and all other stakeholders that are involved. Then now what are we going to do? We're going to have the capacitation of all the stakeholders that are involved in that sector, as well as what we want to see as our outcome, what we want to achieve. We want to have a better coordination in terms of implementing the relevant legislation. Legislation is very broad. Everything that was mentioned yesterday, including the total allowable catch, that will be addressed in that. The issues with access to sites, there are MPAs and landing sites in the province, but the problems now they are limited. We are having limited landing sites, including the slipway, and most of them are mostly private. So what we want to see as the outcome, we want to have a responsive infrastructure for access to water and sites. That will include having a harbor. The issue of harbor as the province is coming up there. You see that the responsible department supposed to fast track the development of harbors for the province. And there's also, we noted issue of coordination in that regard, because there is also DFE that is working in that space, and also the CPTA that is also involved. Diversification of research, it was mentioned that there were studies that were done in the province, but that information is limited, as we don't all know the capacity of the province in terms of developing the fisheries sector. I think HOD also raised some issues here when she was addressing us. That issue of diversification of research will mostly focus on the available resources in our province. The outcome, we need to have a relevant, updated research decision-making and industry development, and also partnerships with the institutions of higher learning. The IUU, illegal fishing, we decided to take that and put it as a standing alone item, as it is a burning issue, especially in our province, where there are a lot of illegal activities that are happening. And then we said the interventions there, we need to have education and our awareness and coordination. It's also coming up. We need to use the relevant technology in terms of monitoring the illegal activities. What is the desired outcome? We need to reduce unreported and illegal fishing activities in the province. Coming to the market access and value chains, there is access and there is market available for our resources, but now the problem is the lack of business model from the cooperative side. So awareness also needs to happen. We need to establish business model for this co-op and incubation programs to identify the demands of the market. So what we know now, even the co-ops are focusing mostly on high value species, not fully utilizing the basket that they were all allocated to. The issues of finance, we need to have a finance or a fund that is specifically developed or designated for supporting the fisheries sector. The issues of skills and development, there is a lack of skills that has been identified across the board, including the officials and the fishers on the ground. So capacity building will happen in that regard. as well as the issue of coordination of technical advice and support. We will stop to work in silos, and coordination will also be addressed using all the relevant platforms that we have as the province, the ECSECC, and also the forums that are on the ground. We'll try to have our way of being part of those organizational structures, monitoring and evaluation. Whatever that we do, we need to account and monitor the progress on the ground. There will be quarterly reports and impact evaluation studies. And there will be regular reporting on the platform, on the lab, especially on the lab that ECSECC is managing, as we are all the stakeholders that are normally meeting on a quarterly basis. Issues of fisheries will be also addressed in those platforms. So this will also be covered in our strategy. Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy. I'll give a chance if there's any input from the colleagues that were in that group, if anything that is missed.
There's this size I think two things. One, I think we spent a lot of time on the we have to take a lot of regulation that we have to use, and that some of the colleagues in the province I don't understand, and how much more important. One of the ills that the was like the coordinated work. All the districts was in the province to prepare a workshop then on the secondly, we also identified these components are also required to comply with the corporate and officials outside of the that it needs the CIPC and all the other agencies. Also, what was very clear is the issue of access to markets and because it's at the market, but communities do not know where to go in one of the markets. And also, the availability and the interested in access of the system to access the markets. However, the infrastructure is something wrong. Most communities they want to focus on one or two species, whereas they need many species, and that as a collective, we need to find a way of introducing other species into the market. Various streams of income. But the region there was also the indicator was breakers waiting for in all of our there is a point of coordination that are accountable and that maybe that this particular effort is there and so all of us to what and every each and every text as the process and monitor.
Are you coming without a computer? Or you've got the. Let's go to the next group. Password. Imagine. Yeah, tell me so much. We're gonna go to the third group. I know the third group has got its own 10 minutes. We will, at least we are running on time. I'm trying to think who's gonna do. I know it will be close discussion. I'd like to have someone in the room just to thank ECSECC for organizing this event, but I'm thinking that everyone is ready. I'll give you the mic once I think who must do that. That each year, I'm not doing it. I'll probably do it about
Good afternoon, colleagues. So initially our group was tasked to focus on inland fisheries, but we decided to also focus on freshwater aquaculture because most of the members that we had are in the space of freshwater aquaculture. So with the first point that talks to a regulatory framework, where we are now is that freshwater aquaculture is managed by provincial ordinances. However, there's also an existing aquaculture bill that is currently in progress. So what we've identified as the challenges of the sector is that there is a fragmented legislation throughout stakeholders and departments. For example, you find that you have to get a water use authorization from Department A, and then the farming one from Department of Environmental Affairs, which is the DRDAR. And then the proposed interventions were that there should be a streamlined authorization. And then there should also be some improvement in policy implementation and governance. And then with the second point that talks to access to sites and water, we do acknowledge that in the province we have an aquaculture development zone in Guha that also has a freshwater site. That is what we have. And then the one that is in red, it talks to inland fisheries where we are aware that our water resource, they are actually access to it is managed by Department of Water and Sanitation. But then in terms of the type of species that one will harvest, the lead department it's the DRDAR. And then with the challenges that we've encountered, it's that, okay, I'm gonna go back to the regulatory one actually. The challenges that we've also identified is that there should be clarity and there should also be some centralized platform in terms of the application processes of the permits, some sort of a one-stop shop situation to avoid taking your farmers from pillar to post. And then more or less the same thing applies to the access to sites and water. There should be some clarity in terms of where exactly should the farmers go, which institution to access the ECSECC perhaps. And then in terms of the proposed interventions, we've concluded that inland access to facilities can be managed provincially with all stakeholders affiliated with the sites participating fully. And then the third one focused on diversification of research and development. There is a National Aquaculture Research Forum in the country. And then we also have institutions in the province too, such as WUSU, which is it participates in sharing research on freshwater ecology. And then in biology, we also have University of Fordham, we have Rose University, and then Nelson Mandela University. And some of the challenges that we've identified is that there is a lack of a national aquaculture research database to talk about the actual research that has been done in the province. The research is kind of like maybe uncoordinated because as much as we are aware that when research is done, researchers publish their work, but it's not all the research that is published. Some of the research it's not published, so we end up not knowing exactly who is doing what. So perhaps in terms of the interventions, can we perhaps have in terms of the interventions, can we perhaps have a database, create dialogues amongst the centralization of the research that is done in the province? And also, can we establish an aquaculture research forum? Okay, I've already done this one. I think this was duplicated. And then also university data should be shared and equally available for access to all within the province. And that will also detail what exactly has been done. And then also, yeah, there should be some transparency. And then again, on top of that, with the research, as the department, we also acknowledge that there should be more research that supports our farmers. So as the department, we are in the process of establishing a demonstration facility in Stutterheim. That demonstration facility will run various research based on what our farmers need. For example, we do know that feed in aquaculture, it's one of the factors that contributes to so much operational cost. So with the farmers that we have in the province, they can actually come up with their challenges in terms of feed. And then we can also be able to formulate recipes to reduce the cost of feed. And other researches are not limited to this. And the demonstration facility that we're going to have at Doni, that will be managed by us, the department, we will also produce fingerlings, and those fingerlings will actually be provided to other farmers within the province for further grow out. And as you are aware that in the province, we don't really have much hatcheries for freshwater aquaculture. And in addition to that, the fingerlings that we'll produce at the demonstration facility, will use them to stock of dams to enhance inland fisheries. And then when it comes to sustainable development of aquaculture and fisheries, we are aware that some of the technologies that we use in aquaculture, they are not cost effective. So we need to come up with cost effective methods that will be adopting to the relevant culture technology in relation to the relevant species. So you rather actually go for a culture method that complements the species that you want to farm. For example, we have Mabilini Dam in Umtata. Mabilini Dam has the water quality. It's very good. Those are the areas that we can identify for cage culture of trout, rather than forcing maybe to farm trout in a recirculating aquaculture system, whereby during the summer you will have to use chillers to drop the temperature. And then there are also other species like your maroon crayfish. You can farm it in the pond throughout the year, and you should be able to make a profit and succeed from that. So here we're basically saying use the relevant species for the right technology. Go to an area where the climate would be suitable. Don't force to farm a particular species in a system that is not really compatible to such a point that you'll have to end up using a lot of energy to manipulate the climate. And then we also touched on access to market. And access to market, this is a national serious problem. This is a national serious problem. We mentioned that what needs to happen is that farmers should know that before you even start any aquaculture farm, the first thing that you need to do is to do your market research. Before you even farm a fish, do your market research. Know what maybe if your target market is the community, know what the community needs. For example, in Limpopo, I'm going to talk about Limpopo, I'm very familiar with it. For example, Limpopo, if you were to start with catfish in Limpopo, you are definitely going to have a problem with markets, because in Limpopo, catfish, it's as much as it's a fish, they don't really consider it as a fish because it does not have scales. So there are many myths around it. So if you go with catfish, you will definitely have problems. But if your catfish is for the informal market, the downtown street in Johannesburg, there's a lot of informal market. Catfish, it's sold left, right, center. Most of our brothers from the other countries, particularly Nigerians, in Joburg and Victoria, there's a lot of catfish. There's a lot of catfish being sold in corners, even restaurants. There's a restaurant actually that I've once seen that only sells catfish. So, and then another thing that we spoke about is that when you're considering the market, there should also be proper access to roads, and then there should also be some infrastructure where you can package your products so that you ensure that when they reach the desired market, they are fresh. And then the products are also, there should also be some innovation in terms of value addition. You can dry them even by the sun. Our colleague mentioned that other countries are actually just drying them as like biltong. You can also use salt as preservatives. Yeah, you just need to be very, very innovative. And there should also be some capacity building around there to train people in terms of how to prepare their products. And then also, you should also be proactive in terms of diversifying your species. Okay, I'm going to be fast. Yeah, I'm wrapping now. Development finance, expand funding and capacity building and development. And then the funding should be distributed amongst various district municipalities. They should actually be shared equally. And the funding efforts from various institutions within the province should be coordinated. Let's not have a situation whereby I'm buying, or Dr. Da is buying a fishing gear for Fisheries A, and then another institution is also doing the same thing. Let's coordinate the efforts, and then let's introduce some incentives for our farmers, particularly the commercial ones. And then skills and development. This is very important. We discussed a lot about this one, but I can see Chairperson wants me out of the stage. So capacity and building, we need to dwell much into this, because if people don't know what to do, if they are not capacitated, then you are not going to go anywhere. You might as well not even start your farm if people are not capacitated.
Thank you, Madam.
And then monitoring and evaluation, the very same strategy that we're developing. We need to monitor it. We need to check its impact.
Thank you. Unfortunately, this group, I won't give them a chance to add. As much as we've used other time, more than the 10 minutes. Colleagues, we thank you for the, I know within the groups, the engagements were very intense. People trying to get the best out of this. Definitely the team that sits here to write the actual strategy, they've got all information that they need for them to write a very good strategy that we can implement. Not a document, something that is implemented, and we'll commit again to develop an implementation plan. My task is I'm getting closer to finishing my existence here. I would like to give balloon guy to do the thing, Richard, yeah. To do the just a closing remark and thanking ECSECC for what they've done. After that, I'll hand over to HOD for the closing remarks.
Thank you. As industry, it's very easy to be negative. And you said half hour, right?
No. You've got 3 minutes.
As industry, it's very easy to be negative. We've been through COVID, the problems that we're currently experiencing with load shedding, the problems that we as a company are experiencing with flights. All of these things are way heavy on us. It makes our life very difficult. However, a gathering like this is very important. And I'm encouraged by lots of plans, lots of ideas that are coming forth. The plea is, let's convert these plans into action. Guys, that's really the essence. I think a plan, I studied city and regional planning, development economies. We all love making plans. Plans is the easy part. It's getting those plans converted into action. But I must say, I'm also encouraged in this regard. I've been receiving emails in the middle of the night from Breakaway, from ECSECC. I mean, the middle of the night. with that kind of dedication, I think definitely. So I wanted to say thank you, viewer, and thank you to ECSECC for hosting us. I think this has been an excellent opportunity for us. And with that, I'd also just like to conclude the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Thank
those words. And I know you is really serious. The industry can be negative. Especially when it towards government, when they see government, they see this person who doesn't assist in anything, just put on bureaucracy. And HOD, I hope you are ready. Now you've got your full eight minutes to wrap up, so that my time that was given by Debs and where I can say I've made it. I've budgeted time very well. Now HOD is over to you. Turning up then.
Unmute. Yeah, unmute. Oh, there was mute on the speakers. Let us increase the volume of that speaker. Let's try.
HOD. Ungathetha HOD kanti unmute. Ndonqenibani mara kanti sokudala uthetha kwelo cala. Usamute.
See if I see on chat. Problem on chat. Okay, what can I do is to come.
Okay, let me try and call HOD to see if he's there.
Can also go there. Chat. So let me see. You can type out scatter.
Okay. Okay, colleagues, I think now it's gonna be tough. HOD is, I think, is another meeting. He says she's on the platform in another meeting. Now likely that we'll miss the part of her closing remarks, but I think she has contributed a lot during the day. It's a pleasure that she was part of us. I think I will take that opportunity to do the closing remarks for the session. I think, colleagues, for me, I'm very impressed with the variety of stakeholders that we had on the platform and the passion that was shown in discussing this animal in the room, because we've got the animal in the room of underdevelopment and in poverty. I think the discussion was just right, directed in the right direction. I think everyone who made time to be here, I know we are paying no one to be here, but people did volunteer to come, spend their hours with us. And I think some of us, we do that because we're employed to offer this service. You see that, and please assist the province to develop. I know there is an issue HOD got in here. When it comes to what is called ocean economy, that is very broad. It tends only to be looked at in the aquaculture. Then unfortunately, aquaculture is one that is not moving. Fisheries got its own problems. But I think these 2 days gave us a way that how can we start better, do things so that we go forward with these two subsectors that are very important in the livelihood of the province. I'm definitely colleagues to say when I said everyone will get the first draft and will congregate here to discuss the first draft of the strategy, and will congregate here to make an implementation plan for the strategy. We get every stakeholder that is here who's interested in this group, who want to see growth, inputting, committing, in developing these two subsectors. Then we all from that point implement our commitments. I think this is the only thing that must just do from industry, from government, from civil society, from farmers, small-scale farmers, small-scale fishers, and civil society, everyone, academia, all of us, let's play our role in changing the narrative in the development of aquaculture and fisheries. With those few words, colleagues, it's for me saying thank you to all of you who made time to be here. We will meet again. We will, through between Dr. DRDAR and ECSECC, we will organize other sessions just to validate information and ensure that we've got the right information that we will present in front of you as a first draft of the strategy, and you can discuss and we all agree on. With those few words, I thank you very much. I think the special thanks must go to ECSECC. The effort that they put in keeping they are putting lots of effort in keeping this working group together. I know what they do, and they even spend their money on this. That is very important, and I think they represent the Premier's office very well. They are the entity of the Premier's office. They play their role of coordination very well. Thank you very much, colleagues. I think from here we can't go back. We can only move forward. DFFE colleagues, I know we've called you many times to Eastern Cape. You are not tired for coming to the province. Every time we call on you, you do come and make sure that you input. Uthethe utata bakaSamsayizo into ebalulekileyo into yoba umntu abeke isitambuleni responsibility kuyo. Things die because we're not taking charge of our areas of development. If all of us will take charge of areas of development, then we can go forward. But putting a stamp and authority, it doesn't say stop development, assist development. And Mama Masematol made a very passionate plea there. That was not only to DFFE. I think it went to all of us as government officials and government entities to say, let's be responsive. Let's be responsive. Let's assist development. We must not be seen as the ones who are stalling development on the process, while we say on the side we want development. With those few words, thanking everyone who's here. I think I learned a lot from the small-scale fisheries group. Their inputs in this session really made the session live, and they really made it, all of us, that we feel what are the citizens feeling about government, what is it we're doing, what we are not doing. With those words, colleagues, thank you very much. The session is adjourned. You are all invited for lunch where we had it yesterday. We'll meet again in the next session. Thank you.